if you were told right now what the actual reality is, my friend, you'd shit your pants, okay? But then you realize, like, well, what is it all for, really? Who is benefiting from all of this, you know? That's what I'm started asking myself.
That's the question.
And I always find some bullshit. No matter how you spin it, you're just this guy who somehow developed into this guy. And then your only choice is to be this guy.
I'm just this weird guy. That's it, right? I mean, what else are you going to do?
You do want to find your place in your tribe, but when you are looking, you keep looking and you're not finding it, the conclusion is you're from a different planet or something.
Whoever achieved Nirvana, that person just poof, gone. You could be talking to this guy and then poof, he's gone. That's it.
Physically.
Yeah.
Physically.
Like you understand, okay, he done it.
There are YouTube channels where people are talking with such confidence, without any interruptions, without without pauses. But the shit they're saying, bonkers. Like there's one channel, I'll just send it to you just so you can take a good laugh because it's incredible. Like you essentially don't even understand what they're saying. You really don't, because it just sounds like a bunch of esoteric words. It's like, you know, if a programmer was explaining to you how the program is made, it's kind of similar, but they're talking about like the nature of reality and the morphic fields and, you know, the quantum things, and like, which is what are you talking about, you know? But if they're talking about it as if like they know stuff for real, and this is the part that really intrigues me, because I like, well, you don't really see that. How are you going to see a person who is bullshitting and they're talking so confidently and so eloquently about it? That's the part that doesn't add up for me. So the options are either they legitimately know something so esoteric and something so complex that you just don't know anything about it, or they somehow developed a persona or something, or it's an act, it's for whatever the reason they're doing it. But still, how would you bullshit so fluidly? That's the question. You can't do it.
No, because
you'd have to rehearse it as an act, essentially.
Right. Yeah, like if you're an actor, right? You're basically becoming another person, talking about certain ideas and stuff.
Or maybe that's where there's different kinds of acting, right? Maybe they're literally embody a persona, but still, like, you would be able to find contradictions and inconsistencies in their speech. But I'm even gonna take an example as, like, spiritual people who portray themselves as gurus or who play those roles that I've seen in different cultures and different languages. There's something that, like, they're very consistent in their messaging. So they have this coherent, consistent system, worldview that they're using to talk into anybody, to answer any questions. And essentially, you can't corner them. You can't ever find them in a position where, like, oh, I don't know, That's the defining feature, is that they behave as if they know everything, which is how's that possible? Who knows what? We're all just these people bumbling around on this planet, and we have no idea what's going on. But some of these people, they like, oh yeah, the fucking morphic fields and stuff. What are they talking about?
And that's the problem.
Where did they get this information from?
In terms of how do you get people, like, I mean, all kinds of people follow all sorts of religions, sort of spiritual path and stuff, like, but for an individual who is not in that, who's trying to learn about all this, you're going to get confused, be like, okay, well, they're all saying different things, so which one is the real one, right?
That too.
And they're all saying, hey, I know the truth, I experienced this, I experienced that. I was like, okay, not to say that nothing disproves that, but nothing's going to prove that either. So it's like, how would you ascertain which one is the right one?
And some of it, like, I read some blogs sometimes, and I recently was reading somebody's blog, and they were writing stuff out, and they were saying something about the quantum realm or whatever, but I couldn't get, like, what the point or what the value of that information was. Like, I was literally not understanding. It's like writing a story that doesn't have any point. Like, there's nothing practical, nothing in it. So I asked them, like, so what is this information for? Like, what do you want me to do with this information? How can I use it in some way? Like, how do you use this information? And they just wrote a bunch of nonsense in response. Like, oh yeah, if I use this information, I'm not, like, staying in duality for so long. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
So,
What is this for? What duality?
because that remind me of the idea, well, not the idea, but like, let's say, okay, so you have salt in the world. That's sodium and chloride, right? That's two different elements that you put together that form salt. So the idea is you can actually, well, one thing is you can just understand how salt works, so you can use salt, versus
Yes.
knowing the exact kind of, well, not only can you not really answer why is there salt.
But at least you know the
Imagine,
properties. If you describe it and
yes,
how it behaves and stuff, you can predict it, which means you
yeah.
can construct the future using it.
So there is two use of information. One is there is practical usage with the knowledge and
Hmm.
information. And the other one is just basically useless information. It might describe everything about the world, but if you can't somehow use it, right?
Not really. If it is describing actual reality, it's always useful.
So in that sense, the guy you were saying,
Yeah.
let's just
They're
say,
saying something and it doesn't have any application. They're saying something about, quantum field and possibilities and stuff. It's like, okay, why do I need to know anything about this? If it's one thing if it's describing like, it's like saying like, oh, there's luck in the world, If you get lucky, you become a millionaire. Well, that's fucking awesome. What is the point of this information? What is the point of saying it? Yeah, if you're
although
lucky, you're gonna be rich. What's not now? How would I use this information?
I could see, for example, right, they're still trying to find, they use the Large Hadron Collider. They're trying to collide these
New particles they want to find
particles
out?
to find out more about what was this kind of hadron. Does it exist? They have some theories about this. There's a fundamental particle that exists. If we collide these enough, we can find them out. That's what scientists are doing. So imagine, as a layman, you could be asking, well, what does a hadron do? Can I eat it? No, then I don't need that information. But imagine if the scientists know enough about it, that might change our view of the world, right? Because
Right,
that
but
might be
there's a hypothesis and they're actually looking to
right.
discover something, and they do have existing science and laws on which they rely. So they have already information about reality, which they're using to pose, hypotheses to find out more about underlying reality and so on. But in that example I was doing, there was nothing practical like that because I was looking to something like, okay, if this, this, and this, then that, right? Some kind of rule, principle, whatever, guideline, guidebook, but there was nothing like that. It was just like to the point of like, yeah, if possibilities are there, the possibility you're gonna realize or something. Like, it's useless. It doesn't mean anything.
But there's that process of finding out information, right? Imagine, let's imagine for the sake of argument that this person got it right. Then he might be describing something in the initial stage where nobody knows what to do with it. They haven't discovered how to feed that into the existing. Imagine a new scientific
Okay.
breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
Like before that, nobody knows what. Let's just say if you discover something, let's just say the first penicillin, for example, if they discover that penicillin, this
You
kind of
notice
bacteria,
something, right? But
can
not the whole
actually
thing.
help us. But if they discover this at the initial stage, they're like, well, we don't know what we're going to do with this. This is some thing that we discover that we haven't discovered before, but what does that mean, right? So you dig deeper, and until you find, oh, actually, we can actually use this to do this, and that, right? So that's kind of the process of that. But on the other side of it, well, you can say anything about that, right? You can say, oh, I discovered this thing, this effect, this whatever. But if you don't have a scientific, rigorous process to kind of repeat the experiment to prove it, then like it might just
Exactly.
be,
Exactly. That's what exactly my point is that either you did notice something real and there is a 1, 2, 3 step process to demonstrate it, or it's bullshit.
yeah,
Like, right? No matter what aspect of reality you take, okay, psychological, psychic, whatever, but it still goes back to, oh, you found out that? Okay, check, show me. 1, 2, 3. If you can't do that, then it's not real.
right. Because,
That's how we define reality. I know
right.
we have subjective experiences, subjective, all kinds of weird phenomena, but then that's where it ends. It's like, oh yeah, you experienced something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you had a
So
weird dream. Where is it?
that's where a lot of people, that's where we mostly trip up on, right? Because we have this kind of scientific worldview, on one hand, where we're trying to ascertain all this stuff. Um, how real they are, or are these things repeatable? Are these patterns, phenomenon, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other side, there are these things that we can't explain, right? The mystery stuff, the religious stuff, all that. And we are trying to kind of find out, okay, well, can we test the hypothesis against these? And apparently some of the stuff we still can't figure it out.
And yeah, I guess
So
that's where it points out I can accept that, the science and all this replicability might not be the ultimate standard of reality. And, reality is much more complex and intricate, but that would be just such a mind fuck to accept that reality is kind of undefinable, like you can't find out all its building blocks,
this
which is,
just
it could be.
so this remind me again, like once again, I just love Dune so much. And the fact that the
Yeah, I
idea, okay,
started
in the
reading the first
movie,
book.
yes, that's good, man. It's the weird. Okay, I'll say this: Frank Herbert wrote some weird shit. Okay, but it's some cool weird shit. But what I'm saying here is the movie. Like without talking about the book, let's just say the movie, the two movies. Imagine if you're the Fremen, you're Stilgar, for example. Like that he believes in the Mahdi, right? This whole thing, he's been taught to believe this thing. But let's just say the actual how Paul became that is just there is a thing called the spice, and that affects your mind, and you are able to tap into the possible future. You're able to read it. That's the reality. But you can make yourself a figure like a Mahdi because these people don't understand how you're doing it. Imagine you understand exactly how it happens, right? Because you just take some drugs and you have some wild visions and somehow you're able to do all this. But
Oh, yeah,
then
but
you're like,
see, the key point is still it's somehow, because from
right,
what I've
so
seen in two movies so far, even Paul doesn't know how it happens, right? They never
exactly,
touched
right?
upon this.
But he's able to do it. But as far as your the Fremen is concerned, any demonstration like what he did in the final part of the movie, before they went to war,
Hmm.
he proclaimed himself to be
Yeah, like a
the one.
miracle, right?
But exactly, he's able to demonstrate and show them, well, this is what I can do. But imagine you were the Freeman, you're like, oh my God, he's God. He's because
Right.
to you can't envision how the hell would that even be,
Yeah.
right? Possible. Imagine if you saw Jesus, for example, he did the whole miracle thing. Let's just say if you were
Yeah.
the person who supposedly saw something like that, you're like, well, yeah, he's the son of
Yeah.
God, right? I mean,
Exactly.
what else
That
do you
would be
need?
like, I mean,
How would you explain it? Maybe there is a way to explain why you're able to do that, but somehow these people just think it's magic, right? It's like there's no
well, for
way.
all
How you
intents and
gonna?
purposes, it is, especially if that's like the singular case in anybody's, life and history where, like, and it's a myth, essentially a myth coming alive, because you live a life, it's like you meet normal people for like 50, 60 years, and then this guy
Yeah,
comes along and can like do all this magic stuff, and you're like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
this is special. This guy
yeah,
got something, he's cooking. So whatever he's got, he has more power than me, and that's enough for me to like, all right, dude, you can
right.
be
But obviously
the boss around
that's
here.
that's fiction, right? But in reality, I don't know. Any religion, they can't demonstrate it in terms of exactly is that really what happened? They have the book, they have the holy books, and they say this is what it is, man. This is how what happened. You got to believe in Jesus. But a lot of the newer people, anybody who haven't actually witnessed, let's say, the miracle, then they're gonna be like, well, are we just supposed to just, you know, believe in it just
Yeah.
because you say that is the truth?
Yeah, what's the point of believing in it, right? Especially when when these are claims that are just so miraculous that you've never seen anything like that, and nobody ever seen anything like that. It's just the belief in the miracle. There's something in that, in its function, that is like, why does that exist? I was just looking it up, the role of myth in human culture. Myth gives humans shared meaning, identity, and orientation in the world. It's how cultures encode their deepest truths in story form rather than in propositions. I do like that. So it is kind of like the story weaving where you encode certain symbolism and values, and whatever you want, really. Does that process happen consciously? How are myths even formed? Aren't these just stories that somebody concocted at some point and people just like enshrined it?
Yeah. Because I think that part of it is that I think as human beings, I think we fundamentally have a fear of being alone. That way, you always trying to reference it to other people. Like this is where community building, right? Like you share stories, you share these things because it's like, hey, are you understanding what's going on right now? Right? Because you will want to talk to another person, be like, hey, are you seeing all this stuff? I'm not crazy, right? I'm not imagining all this. That's how they build their world, right? You build this kind of understanding of the world by sharing the information, be like, okay, this is what we see. So you learn skills together, right? Imagine if you were a hunter gatherer society, like you're going to
Yeah,
have
but
some
that's
people.
just your actual reality in which you live in and share. It's like that's culture. That's your current culture, similar to how in modern days everybody's embroiled in news and politics, and sports is a big part of the culture, and that's how people bond and what they share, the language they get. It's a way of, yeah, bonding within the community. But myth specifically, is that just a culture of the old times? Does myth have any relevance today?
Yeah, I think this is part of what we touched on before with the whole subconscious, right? I mean, the unconscious, the sort of what do you call that? Collective unconscious. The idea that these are some shared characteristic that we kind of codify them in ways that we can understand. Because you see, when we tell a story, it's more digestible, right? When you have these collective unconscious characters, like the mother, the hunter, these archetypes. It's just kind of like it's almost like a stereotype where right away you recognize, okay, that's the figure,
Right,
right?
you're talking about the archetypes. It's the there's that's the inner psychological role of the myths. They personify deep psychic patterns, which are archetypes, and so help individuals navigate key life transitions like birth, coming of age, love, crisis, and death.
Yeah,
So that's inherently intertwined with myths. So myths kind of like encode all this important information about the journey of life and transition through different phases, right? Uh, but
yeah.
myth in a larger context is essentially all stories, any stories, right? That's why I like just exploring the concept of art so much, because it's such a wide category, but really it's myth, right? Because the writers write, what do they write about? Like it's all the information that's circulating somewhere on the, more or less surface of a society, of culture, right? It comes from somewhere. It doesn't just come from ether, just random stuff, right? Each society, each culture, each age will have its own stories that will percolate to the surface and become important. Yeah.
I think they codify basically the society kind of codify these kind of important lessons into these deities, and somehow that would just kind of be there. Like if you worship, like in ancient Egypt, for example, right, or ancient Greek, they have all these different gods. So essentially, you pray to one for certain kind of results, right? It's almost part of it is just like there are the wishes of people. There's also kind of some of these passed down lessons that are kind of like, that are within these stories of these deities. And then when you worship them, you kind of practice this ritualized kind of thing to kind of remember what's more important for you to do as a group of people, right? But obviously it becomes its own canon, its own kind of meta sort of storytelling in which if you do believe into it, it's not like you're actively trying to remember what the lesson is. It's more like by just believing in the story, in the myth, you're already enacting it without you thinking about it, right? It's more like this is kind of how you can more or less have predictable results in terms of social cohesion, where enough people believe in the grand story in this case, then they all behave in similar ways. Now, if you believe in a faith, then you will follow that faith, and that faith tell you what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, right? And that in itself, it just becomes easier as a sort of self-reinforced kind of notion to keep people not devolve into chaos. Essentially, it's not like these. It's not like there are actively people trying to tell you this to brainwash you to kind of control you or so you could do what they what. It's just kind of this I mean, maybe in the modern day we're more cynical about it, but I think in the past people believe in this because there's nothing else out into the world where the world is a dangerous place. So you gonna have to have some sort of things that you hold on to. Be like, okay, this is our fundamental things that can guide us, right? Without knowing, because people back then don't know science, they don't have these things that access to more knowledge. So it makes sense, right? The ancients are just like, well, they see something happen in the world, they're like, okay, there got to be this is some extraordinary thing that happened. Therefore, it must be the gods. It must be some easier to
Yeah,
explain.
just a sign in the store, an explanation, even though, it might not be the actual reality. They have some kind of accounting for it, right? It's not like oh, there's nothing. You just don't worry about it. We do
Yeah,
tend to have some kind of description, even though just based on our accessible data, right? Before, people did not have access to the scales of reality that we've been able to investigate with science. So had to do, they had to explain it somehow. So I can totally see how
yeah,
before you'd be like, yep, that's Zeus. He's throwing his lightning over there. That's because, well, how else?
that's what
What else
happened.
do you think is happening? Yeah, that's all we know.
Right. So that's why I don't know. Like that's been what's holding the world together, from in the ancient past, and like it or not, it is as what Nietzsche said, that when that God is dead. During the time that when he wrote what he wrote, he was realizing, okay, Christianity is going away because people are starting not to believe it anymore. Even back then, right? People are starting to kind of, with a new science, with a new belief system that are forming, right? People are kind of moving away from that, and he's just essentially saying, well, yeah, we killed it. We killed God. Essentially, people stop believing in it, and therefore that way of life is gone. So he's sad about the fact that things are changing back in his time,
Yeah,
where it's the unknown. It becoming the unknown because once this thing unravels, you don't know what will happen, right? You
yeah,
will know what will happen after that. What if people don't have faith anymore? If they don't believe in God, then what will they
right.
do?
Because the
Instead.
effects from believing God it's a very powerful unifying theme, right? And it's a principle that, real or not, just believing in it, on a societal level, it is producing certain governance effects on the society.
Yeah.
And yeah, if that society starts believing something else, well, it's gonna be a different society for sure. It may be behaving, because that's like a meta principle, which will guide a lot of your thinking even. Because before, I know there can be different degrees of believing or not believing, but if you like really believe God, and do try to adhere to the scripture and the laws, that's a vastly different, like, it's constantly in your awareness. You are literally trying at least to adhere to it. But I think that's where that secret to changing lies, because when you believe something, you're trying to behave according to it. That's the secret. Because now, if you believe something else, you're going to be acting in accordance to that belief, and it's going to be a different life. Even though, a lot of religions do have a lot of stuff in common. They have the similar seeds. There's a lot of compassion and friendly attitudes towards your fellow humans at the core of it. But there are some nuances and some differences, and there's definitely going to be differences in the society that we can see in different cultures that follow different religions. But the fact that I think I've encountered this not so long ago, this as an idea, is that it's a society's evolution to go away from God. That there's like it's an evolution of beliefs, that it
Mm.
happens in ages. It doesn't even happen, for some people it happens throughout their lifetime, because people change religions. Really, that sometimes they do it multiple times, which must be crazy. But there is that search for meaning on both personal level and societal level. It just changes on a societal level slower throughout centuries. But if it is changing, I think it might be changing for us as species, because eventually we might just move away from this idea of God and consider it as primitive as, us waging wars in the ancient times. Because what if that's just another belief as a stepping stone to something else, to some kind of real understanding of things? Because it's imagine, like, there's going to be a shock if you were told right now, what the actual reality is, my friend,
Yeah.
you'd shit your pants, okay?
It's like,
so so you can't really do it that way. Not a societal level, not on a personal level. You have to kind of introduce it gradually. So maybe that's what's happening.
yeah, that could be, right? As we discover more and more about the world. But obviously, I do feel like there's such a gap though, because more or less, I think most, maybe this is not accurate, but I think in a lot of cases, we are basing everything on a physical, what do you call it? Physicalist perspective, where we, especially with the sciences, right? With the scientific method, we're more and more kind of leaning on this sort of everything is physical, in the sense that you can essentially try to account for all the things in the universe. But obviously, there are people who say
Yeah, except
who don't
consciousness.
who don't accept that, who say that, well, there's something more to it than just the physical aspect to it, or at least it's something in which is unaccounted for, that you can't somehow can't you can't really measure it, right?
Well, it's the consciousness. The consciousness is not
Right.
accounted
The
for.
idea,
There's
yeah,
no solutions. There's no
there are
theories.
people
There's
who
nothing.
say that, consciousness is everywhere, as in almost like the fabric of reality
Yeah, it's
itself,
the
where
idealists.
you're just tapping into it, right, as an individual. So yeah, there are that aspect, and obviously in that sense, materialists say, well, how can you prove it? There's no way to prove it. That's why we're still having the debate, right? Is consciousness within ourselves, in our brain, or is it something out there and somehow we're part of like a field
This
of,
is where it's like it's very even difficult to kind of fantasize about what it could be, because what does it mean for consciousness to be in your brain? So we look at the physical reality and we know there's a brain. There's a brain in your head, and we know that if there's something happens to your brain, your perception, your whole life will be affected. So we know that there's some kind of correlation between your awareness and consciousness and the brain health. Mm, And but that's about it, That's about where it ends, because there are examples where people missing a big part of their brain and they're still functioning normally like a normal person. There's examples of all kinds of near-death experiences and lucid dreams. There's all kinds of anecdotes, but this is where it's almost like, what kind of proof can you have if it is something like, if it is essentially you have some kind of non-physical existence? How would you prove it in the physical world? To me, it sounds like just a different dimension. But if it's a different dimension, it's like a shadow. How do you prove, the 3D object to the shadow? The shadow does not have a conception of three-dimensionality. So it's that. To me, it's that. Which means that, yeah, the mystery of that dimension of reality or existence is beyond this physical reality. They can't be proved because we can't like perceive it in this dimension in that way. It's another thing from another dimension altogether. It could be that, and then we'll never find any proof because it's just not possible.
yeah, that could be a thing. I mean, the fact that we're still trying to find out, what scientists are just trying to find out what is dark energy, the so-called dark energy, like what is it? They're still trying to do experiments, and some findings, I think that recently was suggesting that there could be something to be found, but we still don't know, right? So because you can't detect it. It's almost so in the example of dark energy, it's almost like this thing you can feel the force that it exerts, but you can't find out any you can't find it anywhere. Like it's not there. It's not physically there. Like no amount of detection that we have so far, like can't find it. So either we don't have the tools, we haven't developed the tools to see it yet, or yeah, maybe it's something where I mean, I don't know if maybe it's not the fact, maybe it's not that you can never know it. Maybe eventually you have enough of a precision technology, maybe, right? But yeah, so far that's what we're dealing with, right? With the fact that each individual can only have their own observer locality, right? You're only observing your local reality, so to speak, and that's where the chaos comes from. Because yeah, each person are seeing their own versions of their life experiences, and how do you it's almost impossible to kind of have a sense for all of it at once, because each individual are recording their own sort of what's happening in their life. So it's very hard for people to like completely believe in one thing and sort of like we all are in agreements. And how do you, I mean, I guess AI is getting there in the sense that is able to communicate between different agents almost simultaneously.
Yeah, it can
So
compile a lot of information
a
and
lot of information,
cross-reference it.
which is crazy. That's what they're doing right now with like I think one of the key drivers for AI, for example, not to get into AI, but I'm just saying part of it was this drive for simultaneous kind of detection and kind of observation, and then kind of gather of information. So it's the kind of speed by which people just crave that, where we're trying to find out more ways to kind of get all the information as quickly as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, it's another use case of or example of technology trying to speed things up. That's what we've always tried to do.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that we're able to do, like myself, I'm using AI a lot. Yeah, it's crazy, dude. It's so strange thinking about. It's like it's like living before internet. I can't imagine
How
not
how
using it at this point because it is that useful. Like, obviously there's a way to abuse everything, but if you use it just, in specific applications, it's crazy what it can, it saves enormous amount of time. But then again, by saving enormous amount of time, it's kind of removing these tasks and things that you were doing before, so you don't even do them anymore, which to me, that's kind of what technology has always been doing. Oh, you don't want to plow this field yourself? You're going to make a thing that does it for you.
yeah.
So we keep inventing these tools that kind of do all this work that we get tired of doing ourselves. And like, all right, I don't want to do it anymore. Let's invent this thing. And then it keeps happening. Look how much stuff we invented that does everything for us.
But
So,
the key question still is we still don't know what to do with ourselves, Like that's the problem that always, and especially now that we have more technology, is more pertinent a question that we got to ask ourselves, like what do I do with myself, Because before you don't have a choice. So you have limited technology, you still got to do work, you still got to do a lot of things manually, and people do them because, well, in their worldview at the time, it's like, well, yeah, this is all we got. You got to do what you got to do. But now, more and more, these tasks are being taken away from you by AI, by technology, by whatever. It makes everything speed up, but also yes, you have access to these things that can make things go quicker for you, task and otherwise. But eventually, you're going to find yourself at a point where, okay, well, all these things can be automated. Then what do we do? You know,
right. If
like
everything is automated and everything is taken care of, what do you want to do?
because you see, I see that people it's very dangerous for us in the way that sometimes when you do got nothing to do, you're gonna break stuff. That's what you do. Other people
Yeah,
tend
yeah,
that's
out
what
of
they will be
boredom,
doing.
out of the fact that's like, well, I want to have some kind of impact or something, right? I want to have some kind of purpose, or
Yeah,
some people
because
just want to see the world burn because that's
yeah,
just
because
a desire rises for them.
you see the first thing. Imagine, right? This is, I mean, everybody probably ran this scenario in their head, but we see so many examples of where this is the classic one where a lottery winner, their lives are destroyed by money, right? Once they got the lottery, not like most of them basically destroy themselves. Is You see, this is the part of the question, right? Okay, what do I do with myself now that I have all this money? I don't have to work anymore. I can do whatever I like. But these people still choose the worst way possible to spend that money, right?
Because I think that's another example of how there are unconscious desires or subconscious desires, right? Which essentially they are there. You can't deny that they're there because, we've all been in that situation where you've let them run loose. But even then, like it does happen to me still from time to time where I'm like, wait, why was I doing this? Like, did I, like, especially looking retrospectively, I was like, but I
Yeah.
already went through this cycle many times. Like, why do I keep
Why do I
repeating
keep
it?
doing it?
Right?
Right.
So there's that. There's also this some kind of subconscious compulsion because you're not able to detect it in real time. But even in real time, when you do suspect it, like I think I've told this example on the podcast before that you sometimes you see the desires like unfolding in front of you. It's like it's having effect on you in real time. And you're like, okay, I'm seeing the desire, but then the nature of desire is that you fulfill it. So if I'm desiring something, that's what I want, right? So why wouldn't I do and get what I want? Because I stumbled upon this with the when I was going a bit hardcore with the meditation practices. One of the approaches essentially was to forget about your desires, practice meditation and adjacent techniques all of your free time. It was extremely difficult because at the first, like there was a lot of this. First of all, there was a lot of like strong motivation, but still to switch to that mode where like you stop doing everything that you want that you find pleasurable, like watching movies and playing video games and looking up all kinds of nonsense. You just stop
Yeah.
all of that useless nonsense because spiritual practice, right? So that's the only thing that's important. Extremely difficult to do because kind of get used to all these pleasures and conveniences of modern life. But then I started feeling that really strong resistance somewhere. Like there's just like, this is difficult. This is difficult. This is unpleasant. Like I do want to have, I do want to do all those other things. I actually do want to do them because I feel it. Because I would feel this actual like struggle. Okay, well, no, I gotta
Right.
sit my ass down and now meditate for 5 hours. Like for when it's like several hours, it's not. It's like it's difficult because it's like you have to make yourself. You have to find a way to do it. So when you make that goal for yourself, okay, let's do it. You kind of find out that it's not really possible. It's obviously possible if if there's enough system and everything around it, but it was extremely difficult because those desires and that subconscious process of them being realized is somehow happening.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that spiritual practice was kind of to step outside of it. So the way it was phrased is that that's the only real freedom you can have.
Mm.
Because otherwise, yeah, you're constantly on the hook of just fulfilling these
Right.
desires.
Exactly.
And that does make sense, right?
It does?
But then your choice is to either fulfill these desires or do this grueling spiritual practice that is essentially a war on desires. Which,
Yeah.
but and then like which is more worth your time, I guess, to do it. The point of the spiritual practice is that long term, that's the only thing that matters. It will liberate you from the cycle of desires, but it's very difficult to do. And then the process itself is just very strange. Like eventually, you start noticing the changes and shifts in your consciousness, and it freaked me out. It alarmed me because I don't know what it's doing. What if it's doing something bad and reversible? What if I realized I can't trust it because I don't know what it's for.
It's
It could
almost
be some kind of mind virus that
it's
somebody is pushing onto me.
it's almost alien, right? You're
It
no longer
is.
human,
Yeah.
where
It's weird.
yeah, you no longer have these human desires anymore. Imagine if you're able to maintain that, then it's like not
Yeah,
only
that's
can
that's what it felt like, and especially like I interacted with a community and with teacher there, and the whole thing started seeing like there's a certain behavior and way of speaking there, and I'm noticing all of this like this looks like a fucking cult, dude. This is like culty behavior, even though it looks all proper dharma and proper knowledge from the, but then you realize like, well, what is it all for really? Who is benefiting from all of this? That's what I'm started asking
see,
myself,
that's the
and I always
question.
find some bullshit.
There's always that question, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
who
what
is
I
benefiting?
asked. This is what I asked for myself in terms of these kind of whenever you kind of get exposed to these things like these people telling you, oh, you should do this
Yeah,
because this is good for you, this is wisdom, this is. My first question is exactly what you just said. It's like, what am I gonna need this for, or what? Like, who am I doing this for, or what? Maybe that's very kind of basic desires. Basically, you want to get something out of it. That's kind of how human thinks, right? Where the first question you ask is like, what do I get out of it, right? It's more like you want to get some
Well, that's what
results.
they would say. It's like, yeah, it's the actual freedom and the only freedom, liberation you can have, like freedom of desire, of the cycle of desire and suffering, which sounds good on the surface, but when you live your whole life as that, and you start like, that's what I encounter is like it kind of is the process of destroying your psychology, really,
Right.
which sounds extremely dangerous. Like, what do you mean? So what's going to
Yeah.
happen then? And you don't know. And that's the biggest risk. It's like going into the unknown, hoping that it's better. I mean, I guess that's the ultimate Plato's cave metaphor, right? That's always, you're doing just that. But I realized, I guess maybe I'm not the guy who leaves the cave, because
Mm.
I don't know, dude. There could be all kinds of fucked up shit out
That's what
there.
I'm telling you, man. Like the first possible moment, I know I'm gonna be Cypher in front of Matrix. I'm like, okay, the red pill exists. All right, the reality is out there, but fuck that shit. I'm gonna take my juicy steak. I'm gonna chew the shit out of it. You know
Man, yeah, we
that
came
would be
back to that.
me. I'm just weak. I don't know. I mean, even if you tell me, oh, you got. That's why the Matrix is so perfect of a movie, right? It's like you can basically, this applies to this
Perfect
scenario,
metaphor, yeah.
right? It's like, okay, imagine you're Neo. Okay, this thing, is it for real? You know, even in the movie at the end, he found out that, oh no, like it's not. That's not the case. Like
It's
I'm
not
not
even
the
the
one.
in
It's
the
been
end of the rabbit hole.
right. It's been preordained. Like I'm not special. I'm just the one that the next cycle, right? I'm the one that's supposed to go back to the source and is being used by the machine, essentially, But he still made a choice of like, okay, I want to save the city. I want to save Zion for whatever, for whatever it's worth. Even if it's a cycle, then okay, I'll go do it, right? That's the whole process, right? When he met the architect and he was having all these other consciousness within him on those TV screen, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Something
yeah.
like bullshit, I don't believe you.
Different, almost like different personalities, different voices. There's that, but that kind of reminds me that, well, I think at the core of what we want is some kind of freedom. It's just anytime we go into that conversation, the question becomes, what is actually freedom? Because
Right.
I see that discussion online as
And
well, and that every time people are meaning different things by that freedom. So
yes,
I'm always asking, like, what exactly do you mean by freedom? Do define it, sir.
that word is so loaded, because freedom from what? And freedom relative to what? Right? Because that's the thing. You can't exist with just freedom. It's more like what's not free, right? You have to have something to compare it with for it to be called freedom. So even in that sense, you can't use it in the way that people use that word to understand it, It's like, because I feel, for me, I'm definitely in the camp like we are not in control of anything. Everything is basically determined by what happened before. So there's a sequence of things. So I don't really believe in free will because nothing is free, not in the way that people, understand it. Like, oh, I can make this decision. Well, they all came from somewhere else or came from something from before you had the conception of it. Even yesterday, even anything that happened yesterday is going to directly influence you to make decisions as you do it now, right? So in a technical term, in a technical sense, I feel like, in my opinion, that there is no freedom. There is no free will, so to speak, right? There are degrees of what you can enact on. So, but basically, something gotta give. Something is always, there's a source before everything else.
So then freedom is another kind of a simulacrum term, which is like it's something that doesn't even exist. Because if you were to define freedom, how would you define it?
I mean, I suppose just off the top of your head, it basically has something to do with choices, right? The fact the idea that you can make choices, because that's basically what we all do at all times.
Yeah,
But
make your own choices,
but
but
being
then
able to make them, meaning that there's nothing stopping you from making that choice,
yeah, but even at
but
that point, there's
always constraints.
degrees, right? There,
Yeah.
because your choices are based on circumstances, on actual
Yeah.
constraints that exist
Right.
in real world. So that's
Exactly.
already not freedom from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
It's
So
not
what?
free.
You're
Yeah.
free to choose option A of option B,
B. Yeah.
and if they're both terrible options, that's the extent of your freedom. That
Yeah.
doesn't sound like
There is no
very free to me.
infinite there's no infinite choices. There are a lot of choices. There are almost even you can say that they're close to infinite choices, but it's not infinite, right? Technically it's not infinite. So there's always going to be some constraints and things in which you can direct, especially as a person in your given biology, right? We can only do so much, right? Sometimes machines are better than us because they can lift more. Hydraulics are just more powerful than you and when lifting stuff. So physically, mentally, we are limited in, there's only to a certain point that humans can perform these things.
I'm gonna up the ante for you. If you were able to give any definition of freedom, what type of freedom would you want? You define what freedom means. No, no limitations. Anything you want. What's
Jesus.
the ultimate freedom you can think of in terms of what's possible?
First thing came to my mind, freedom from myself.
Wow, holy smokes. That's deep.
Cause I'm so fucked, okay? I'm so
Wow. Dude, you went transcendental right away. Holy
yeah.
smokes.
Which I don't
That's
know
actually
what
what,
does that even mean? Does that mean I'm so
what,
bad that
no, that's what some spiritual disciplines are exactly for. That's
you
what they're
don't want
talking about.
yourself? You don't want yourself.
What? But what does that mean?
But that's
Do you
kind of
not want
bad
to
though.
exist? What is that?
Isn't that too pessimistic? Like you're
You
saying
you don't want to
essentially,
exist. That's what it means. As you.
but why? I
Yeah.
mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like if I were to be cynical, like I see all these aspects of humanity in which I am capable as well. If you see all the ugly stuff out there, right? And then you kind of think about yourself, it's like, well, I'm also capable of those things, right? I can go out there and do these horrible things as what these
Well,
other
then
people are
that
doing.
would be the better alternative is that you would have the freedom to change yourself as you
Right.
see fit,
Right.
and, inherit system and society as well. So you would still be able to try and improve things, right? Because freedom
Yeah.
from yourself, like the stepping stone essentially towards that is that you are some kind of different self. You change yourself, right? You literally wave a magic wand and you are the ultimate compassionate person who never hurts anybody, who makes all
Right.
the wise decisions, something like that. You would be able to elevate your capacity for everything you want to elevate, which, whether it's possible or not is one thing. But if you did have the freedom to do just that, if you made yourself like, Jesus, essentially.
It definitely takes a whole different mindset and you have to shift your entire way of looking at things, Because
But
like
in that, you would essentially transcend yourself because your current self is very limited, is very flawed, So, but why?
but you see the thing for me though, like I personally at this stage of my life, I'm like I'm I'm formulate this idea that at least for myself, I don't really care the outcome anymore in terms of human achievement or this and that. Not that I gave up on it. It's more like I just want to experience life as it comes and not attach myself so rigidly to these desires, so to speak, or these goals,
Yeah,
let's say, like
that's the Taoist way. Yeah.
yeah. So because it's almost like it doesn't matter to me anymore at this stage. Because I know when I was younger, yeah, I have all these ideas. Like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. That kind of sort of what propels humans to develop more. Chasing after, I guess your
Yeah.
dreams and stuff. But these days, it's kind of a weird. I no longer kind of see like both positive and negative stuff. I'm like whatever. I'm like I'm gonna experience them for sure. That's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
because the world is bigger than you and it's constantly changing and the change is accelerating and it's not like you can even get any purchase on anything, right? There is no way to do it because anybody who tried to do it, they failed. The
Yeah.
greatest people in the world, they've seen everything slip through their fingers, anybody, uh, essentially, no matter how hard you try, you can't be the king of this planet,
Yeah,
which is what everybody's trying to do, really.
but that's what happens, right? And then you end up finding yourself in these familiar patterns. Like,
Yeah.
I remember, well, just the video you were posting talking about what's going on in Russia right now. I can start seeing how, well, that it is kind of a terrible situation where you have one man who, because of his own ego and what he thinks is right for the country, quote unquote,
Yeah.
he's basically fucking it up for everybody. I was like, it's screwing up the entire thing so much that it's just everybody else just having a hard time because of.
But even with this, though, you can apply the same Taoist principles of like, you
That's
don't
just what it
know.
is.
You don't know what it
It is
is.
what it is.
You don't know
Right.
if this is better or the other version better.
Right.
What if the other version was fucking 100 times worse?
It could be.
Because the whole point of people at the top is to try and figure out some kind of something, right? I do like that Taoist principles that, but then essentially we have to abolish any kind of governance.
Right.
We have to, that's the part I'm not too familiar with. I actually want to research it a little bit more. Essentially, what does the Tao proposes then? What, for all humans
But
to
the Tao,
abolish all
this
responsibility of governing anything?
the problem is there's too much supposition in that. The idea that Tao would require people to be more, that they will have to be so full of wisdom to not screw things up more than they have to. Because with that to happen, every single individual have to believe in the Tao and be like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna let it be normal
Okay.
and natural.
Okay.
But the problem is
Interesting.
somebody is always gonna do something. They're just like, no, I don't accept this. I wanna do stuff. I don't wanna just like accept things as they are. Right?
Well, that's the mystery of Wu Wei to me, because like I still don't understand what it means, because I don't know what it means. It's a contradictory statement, right?
Yeah, because you see
Non-action action.
the reason why Taoism it became such a kind of sidelined uh kind of a spiritual belief in China is because people were like, no, we don't want that. We want to build more shit, right? This is why Confucianism went out. The idea that, okay, you're supposed to know your stations, know where you're supposed to be, you're born into it, and this is the rules, and we're gonna build according to, what we already kind of ascertain is the goal, right? Cultural, building civilization. That's basically what it is. So those people in the past are like, okay, they experimented with Taoism at a certain stage of the society. It makes sense, and that's why a lot of people believe in those kind of sentiments. But eventually, things change, and then they're like, no, we can't sit around on our ass. No, like we want to build more
Maybe
cities, build
it's
more stuff.
more. Maybe it's for like a simpler way of life, really. Yeah,
Yeah,
when the societies was structures were not as vertical as this tall, where everybody was in touch with their environment, physically. Then it kind of makes sense. It's more you are playing it by feel, because you are more integrated into overall environment.
and that's what. Yeah, when people were living in tribal society, it's much like, for example, in North America, right? All the First Nations and yeah, like the First Nation, these people they had a very Taoist mentality basically, where they're living within nature, they're living like basically harmoniously with everything. They don't have this idea like, oh, you're supposed to divide up the land. This belongs to who? This belongs to what? Like they just like naturally, oh, it's just there. It's just what it is. Like they don't have the sense of like drawing boundaries and start valuing everything. There has to be a dollar sign to everything. No, they're just like, this is what we're born into, and this is how things should be. But that only works if you have a smaller population, right? When you start having food shortages, that's gonna be a problem, right? So I think eventually this is what happened, right? The cities and society develop more and more along the line of more dispersed responsibilities, more specializations, and more, I suppose, social cooperation in that way, because you got to build the cities, you got to build these things. Somebody going to be supplying this, and other people will be working on this. So that's what we have right now, right? Everybody have a specific job that they're doing, and everything is valued. You no longer can just get away with barter. You have to have currencies. You have to have values for everything, and you got to judge what is the worth of a certain thing, a certain service, certain whatever, and then this is what the modern economy is. And then we're all involved, meaning that if something goes wrong, we all kind of get screwed, right? This is what's happening right now. It's all connected. Like you can't even get away with it. I mean, get away from it, right? It's just constantly affecting you, no matter, even if it doesn't affect you directly, you're still affected by it just because how well the economy does, it's going to affect how well you do, right? So it's weird. Modern society, we got so much more connected, and yet we're so alone at all times, right? It's
Yeah.
just like you're less and less like everybody else is strangers. Like you only want something from them because they can do something for you, right? You pay them money to do certain things for them. That's it.
Yeah.
Nobody
Such a
is.
different way of life.
It's yeah, it's strange, right? Like, but then this is kind of how things are affecting us, and you can't really act any different. I mean, strangers are gonna be strangers to you. You just can't warm up to a person who you never met, like right off
Yeah.
the bat, right? So I don't know, man. The modern, the modern meta is is kind of horrible, but this is also kind of what resulted. All this technology, the fact that we can talk to each other, not in the same space, but with all these recording devices and things. I mean, that's the economy made it, right? We
Yeah.
have these forces in play that kind of make these things possible. But like, everything is not all given. There's like give or take, right? It's like there's gonna be some negative aspect to it for sure, but we are experiencing all of that too. But I think part of it is like it's harder and harder for us to quit this modern
Yeah.
life. Cause like one could, yeah, exactly, right? Like even for you trying to meditate, trying to be like more getting away from desire, part of it is because the modern way of life just make it so much harder for you to do that. Cause imagine if you do this 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Okay, meditate. Okay, there's nothing else to do anyway. So you could get into it a lot easier because there's not that many distractions. You can't go anywhere as easily. You can't have any
Yeah.
more.
You don't have as many things to do, or either you are plugged into the role in society to such a degree where you are quite busy, which is then the problems don't even arise because you're part of the community, you're hanging out with people all the time. Um, but these days, I know everything is a double-edged sword, but I don't know. These days, just the fact that it's very difficult to make or be part of any communities. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own subjective experience that is kind of painting it this way. But if you're comparing a life, in a small tribal tribal type of society with a life in the modern city, like in that tribal society, you don't have a choice essentially. You are by default part of the community because the whole world is a community. If you want to buy food, you go to a neighbor and you get food from them and you have a relationship with them. There's nothing like that you can do these days. You could do that, but
It's
it's less natural. It's not really natural. You'd have to go out of your way to like, hey, you have to go to the same people every day and like gradually try and like strike up conversations or something. But even then, they might not have the
yeah.
time and space to do that. They're like, I'm busy. Like, to buy this thing and go away.
Because see, that's the thing, right? Now part of the stress of modern day life is just because you're dealing with strangers. There's always some pitfalls, right? You try to exchange money for a service, you might get scammed. You might be, because they don't care about you, right? Imagine if the person that you know, they're not gonna scam you because they know
Yeah,
you,
no.
right? And you
Yeah.
know them, like they have a
If
reputation
you're in
to
the same
uphold,
village, yeah, you're
right?
gonna come back tomorrow and beat their ass.
Exactly. That's like they have a reputation. They can't allow that to kind of, destroy the reputation. And that's why, in villages, they will shun people who are like of not great characters. Like if you're a thief, you're gonna get driven away. If you're some kind of unsavory kind of do
You're just
unsavory
not gonna be
things,
part of the
you're gonna
community.
be banished. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. People have these kind of roles that they fill. But now in modern day city, like everybody is potential
We can
enemy,
get away with it. Yeah.
right? They can just, scam you and you can't find them anymore. That's just basically, so every time you have to kind of be vigilant, right? That costs energy. That's the thing about stress, right? Like, a lot of it is kind of this kind of not in your face type of thing, right? Anxiety, this is what it is. Like, it's just things that you worry about that might not even be there, you know? And modern cities, modern day life, we have more and more of that. So it's definitely a horrible way to, because if you don't think about these things, like, it will affect you and you're not, don't even know why, you know? So I do think that to be aware of these things are definitely helpful, whether that's like from meditation or at least some sort of like self-awareness exercise, right? You're getting more aware, okay, what's happening right now? What's happening emotionally for yourself, mentally? What's going on, right? That type of thing will just make you a lot better at resolving these issues before they blow up, because otherwise that's what's going to happen, because you can't get into a thing where you get drawn into this cycle, and that can be a bad thing, you know, where it's kind of this kind of slippery slope, right? Where you accept certain premise and you keep going that route, and eventually that develop into a sort of I don't know, like almost like an indifference. I think that's also part of like a really big problem. Is like you oftentimes would just become indifferent, and that it just make everything worse, because you make more excuses and be like, who cares, right? And
Yeah, but also that is sometimes it is founded, because sometimes you try a lot of stuff that that you came up with, and you tried this and you tried that, and then nothing works out, and you kind of like eventually like, well, what are my
what
options?
is it
Like,
for?
yeah, it's eventually like you do feel helpless, or you feel like, well, I don't know what else, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what's the right decision, what's the right choice. So you do kind of become detached and dispassionate about certain things. Sometimes it happens like that. I mean, these
Yeah,
days, it's a lot of young people encountering that, right? They're like encountering this world that's already built a certain way and moving in a certain direction. And they're like, I don't like this. So why would I participate in this? And I totally feel it. Like, it is a valid feeling, right? Because if a system is set up and then you're just not benefiting in it at all, right? It's even referenced in that video I sent you where people like, okay, this is like becoming unmanageable. Like, how are we gonna live if things continue this way? Like, if people are like start raising prices, which become ridiculous, what are you gonna do? But that's the prices. Like, that's the price tag of like food and
yeah,
shelter and everything. And you like don't have money at all for any of that. You're like, hold on a second. What are we? You can't keep doing the same thing, right? Because money ends, and then you're like, okay, I can't pay for anything now. What now? And then you're done.
yeah. But that's what's going on right now. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
higher and higher prices. I mean, what will happen is there is gonna be a breaking point for society, though. Like, will not go on forever. Obviously,
Yeah.
eventually, people gonna be like, "Nope, we're not dealing with this anymore." So there's gonna be a movement, right? So these are just patterns. It's almost like the ocean, right? There are gonna be waves. If there are winds, then there are gonna be waves. So it's all kind of like basically anything happening in society is there is a natural tendency for it too, in terms of if certain preset conditions are met, that will be kind of the result, right? Because you can kind of quantify that, even though you won't be able to predict what will happen. But these things, because if you think about it, right, every individual have similar ideas, more or less. Like, if something was done to you that was kind of injustice, you will feel angry about it. You will feel, a sense of injustice. And imagine if you upgrade that scale to everybody, then, well, okay, everybody's going to be angry, right? So nobody wants to be at the end of that kind of situation, and you will feel it's unfair.
Yeah, I guess kind of that goes into that territory of what can even be fair, right? That's the age-old question of
It's
why
never
we had all
fair.
those political
Yeah.
systems, right? With like we're all trying to figure out like, well, what's the best system where everybody's
There is no
served
best.
equally and stuff.
There
Like, and
is
it
no
doesn't seem
best.
to exist.
It's too
Yeah.
much information to quantify as a system, because you have all kinds of people with different skill sets, different kind of stage of life, different needs, different requirements. Right. So you can't quantify it. So like there's always going to be somebody not happy with a given system, right? There's just no way that you can satisfy all of that, which means that's why society will have to make some kind of draw the line. There's got to be certain rules and everybody has to obey it. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. This is kind of what it is, and you kind of force into that, because that's the thing. if everybody were given, because this is the part where I'm like, it's scary to think about as a human being, because like feel like given the right incentive, or in this sense the wrong incentive, you're just gonna abuse it. Like, like if you have the abilities to have all that you want, whatever it is, right? The same thing as, well, I was talking about those people who lost, once they won the lottery, they destroy their life. Same idea, that most people are not ready to accept the responsibility for themselves. Like they were
Hmm.
not willing to accept that. I mean, they can't do it. If you give them all the money in the world, to like, okay, now you can decide whatever you want, you can have it. The likelihood of them abusing that
So what would
is
that
higher.
responsibility look like? What is that ability to be responsible for yourself
It's
look like?
almost like you have to have wisdom, right? You have to have self-awareness and enough about yourself to be like, okay, I know I have, because this is
So
the thing.
it is about self-awareness and experience, right? You'd have
Yes,
to learn enough things about yourself. Like, okay, I've been down this road, so I need certain guardrails and rules for myself that I
right.
do want to adhere to myself for my own safety. And
Yeah. So imagine if what's the worst that could happen to a former alcoholic? And this again, it applies to everything. If you give them enough money to not worry about life, they're probably gonna go back to drinking. That's basically,
drink themselves to death. Yeah,
yeah, it's like, fuck, I can have all the drink I have, man. Dude, imagine the
yeah. You don't want
imagine
that
you don't want
because
that. But
you'll yeah.
imagine you're like, I just quit drinking, bro, and now I have infinite money. Like,
Yeah, hold on a second.
it's
That's like a
the
catch 22,
temptation
right?
is so strong. I'd be like, oh,
Because that's what
but
you want, right?
but that's what you want.
Isn't that what you, that's, see, that's the crazy nature of desire, is that you can't moderate it. Or at least it's very difficult, right?
It will
Like,
be very difficult. Like, imagine this
but
is
it's
why.
always very difficult. Like the good thing, you always want a good thing, you know? Sometimes I get these I go on these craving runs.
Yeah, of
Sometimes
course.
they are pretty rare these days. Like, but honestly, they feel terrible. Like when I do get to eat some ice cream and some potato chips, but I do feel like this is terrible. Like I feel my blood just pumping through my body. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel all the cholesterol
yeah. But
in my
then,
veins.
but then you're like, I can't stop.
But then I do it once in a while. Like, so what is that? What is that? Because I mean, it's a
Impulsive.
good thing that at least let's see, like even when I do it like once in a while, like once a month or something, even that is kind of a lot already. Because I eat like, a good chunk of ice cream and a bag of chips in one sitting, because that's my dose. That
One sitting, bro.
in one
One
sitting,
sitting.
bro. I don't mess around. Like I need some ice cream. Let's go. What am I gonna take a bite or something? It's not enough for me.
Imagine that the mental process. One day you come home, it's like, you know what? You know what time it is?
Dude, some people, like, that's nothing. Like some people, some
Yeah.
Americans are having these amounts of ice cream and pop and everything on a daily basis. Like that's what they do, and it never even occurs to them like, oh yeah, this is not good. Like, and then people get really extremely obese. Like, how do you get to that point? That's the part that I'll never understand.
It's just
Because
mental weakness, right? Like you can't. It's
so
like the
what is
same.
that
It's the
mental,
same process, right? It's like it feels so good to eat them, and they
right?
can't
But
control
you just
themselves, right? You just
don't want to
refuse.
stop.
They refuse to stop. Basically, it's like, I. Because the thing is also like if you getting fat, you get more lazy,
Oh yeah,
and you get more, and they're
it's
like,
totally
no,
true.
but for me to kind of exercise, nah, but this feels so good, so
But
I'm gonna
that's
keep
where it's
doing it.
like it's such a downward spiral
Yeah,
that
it's
you
negative cycle.
don't want to appear. Because I also experienced this lesson. The only time where the furthest I let myself go is when a year after COVID started, because it was unprecedented times. But I literally was not going to the gym like for the first time in years, and I changed my habits. I guess I was eating maybe more or something, but I got to about like 195, 198 pounds. That was the heaviest I was in my life. But I was like, I look at my mirror, I was like, whoa, no, 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 no. We're not doing that. Like, we need to reverse this trend right now and never let it happen again. And ever since then, I'm fine. Like I'm 175, 778 right now. 20 pounds less, and I've been staying like this for a long time. Which is because I know if
if it
if you
continues.
go, I'm literally gonna suffer.
But you see, that's self-awareness. Like you can kind of foresee into the future, right? You can
But that's
project.
self-evident. It's in
But
how
for
you
some
feel.
people, I don't know. They don't think, either they don't think about it, or they're unwilling to accept, like, but the work I have to do.
Yeah.
It's like short-term thinking versus long-term.
It's an exchange, yeah, but what determines that? Because
A lot of things. Because, if you, for example, I know this is, a lot of people say the experience that they had, for some people going to Africa when they work as a foreign worker or whatever, right? They go to Africa and they meet the local people. And you know what they say? This is what they don't tell most people. It's like, it seems like the culture there in a lot of different countries of Africa are very similar. They just have, even the locals say that. It's like they have short term thinking because, and it makes sense because they live in such an environment where you don't even know if tomorrow is going to be here. Like for you, you might not exist tomorrow. Things get so bad, or, like people just think short term. It's like whatever I can get right now. So that's what they're saying. When they try to build projects in Africa, eventually all these things were just going to be taken apart and dismantled because they're either stealing the stuff or they're selling it and not kind of making like a positive use of it. Like they just like,
right, we're not
we
building
can
it for
get
long
money right
term.
now. If we
Yeah,
sell
yeah.
this, we can get it right now. But they're not willing to kind of go
They're
long
not
term.
understanding that it's like an investment
Right, you can
into,
get more money if you actually build it.
or
And
value, yeah, or
right, so they value more. So a lot of times we're short sighted. They're like, yeah, we're just gonna sell it right now. We're gonna get this thing right now, and that's the end of that, right? So things don't get built. So, and it's almost like you can't even blame these people for thinking this way because that's what the environment kind of taught them. Like,
right.
yeah, this is how the environment is. How would you have a long-term thinking in an environment where it's like you don't even know if tomorrow is coming?
It would literally have to be a simultaneous process of kind of mass education, and there's going to be a mass project, right, where you both introduce it. These are the changes, these are the purposes of them, but and enough investments in both education and the infrastructure
Right.
for it to rise up and and propagate fast
Yeah.
enough. But if
Like
it's not happening fast enough, yeah, it's just going to be
like some African countries, they're doing pretty well. Like what's it called, Botswana or some of these other places. Some of them have it, nicely kind of systematized and everything. But there are certain countries in Africa where it's persistent like this, where literally they just don't build anything, or they couldn't build anything because if everybody think that way, right? They just like short term thinking. The likelihood of them just like, I'm just gonna take a shortcut. I'm just gonna steal this because
yeah.
why
Then
not?
it's kind of like a crabs in a bucket effect.
Yeah, and then everything falls apart, right? Because if
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
thinking that way, see, that's the thing. As a society, you need to teach people some basic kind of way of thinking that just kind of helps not just themselves but helps everybody else. When
Yeah,
everybody do things
that's the tricky part. So then, even if you're like a genius in that type of society, you can't really have any type of success or prospering. You'd have to navigate to another society because you
right.
can't that, or it's take on a single-handedly the project of elevating that society, educating, and but that's just a massive
That's a
project
massive
of a lifetime,
undertaking. Yeah.
because yeah, if you don't have like-minded people to do that with, it's gonna be impossible, right? Because
Yeah.
what's one person? No matter how much of a genius you are,
So this is
you
why
can't.
I see the problem with a lot of time, these new policies that, a lot of these kind of countries, especially from the West, are they're trying to have this, like you can't think it in your own way of thinking when apply to other countries and other
Right.
places in the world because they don't think the same way, right? They don't experience the same, so that's where a lot of times, I guess that's why there is cultural shock, right? Like you go to another different country and you experience how other people live their life. You're like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is so different than how you know it, right? But this is the problem a lot of times when all these kind of organizations try to help internationally. For example, all the money that people donated to Africa to help them is actually very counterproductive, actually, because by actually donating those money, you just make it worse. You're just making it worse because they just take that money and spend it. That's it. They don't build anything. So
Yeah, because otherwise they would use the principle of necessity is the mother of invention, right? They would
right,
actually be forced to
yeah, forced
be
to
their
build
own
it
saviors.
because they realize, okay, well, nobody's gonna help us, so we got to do it ourselves.
Oh, that's funny. That's a paradox, right? It's like, but we want this is example. See, this is still where Tao wins because it's exactly saying stuff like this. Oh, you have your noble intentions and stuff. Well, look what you're doing.
Yeah,
You don't know what you're
you
doing.
make it worse
Yeah,
because a lot of the times, I just realize that, look, it's really true that we're all lazy, okay?
yeah.
Fundamentally, we're just, like, again, the lazy guy is in us, whereas, like, not.
I mean, there's definitely some people who are very not lazy though. No, they're very neurotic, but in that they have this energy that never settles. Because I know these people, I've met them in real life. They can't even help themselves. Like they're doing stuff all the time. I'm not like that for sure. Like because I have my periods where I literally need to like hibernate, where I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But there's some of these people who are just full of this energy. They're doing this and that, multiple projects at the same
Yeah,
time.
but the problem is, well, they have a problem, um, sitting down. For those people, they're like, they can't sit in a room and meditate. They can't do it.
So maybe their problem is that they're too restless in their
They're
lives.
too restless where they have to be doing stuff at all times.
But
Otherwise,
isn't
they
that
can't.
good?
In a way, it's good, right? You're getting things done, right?
Yeah.
But only if that's something you believe in. Imagine if you have a problem where
Isn't
you
that
just,
what life is for doing stuff?
but see, that's the question, right? What is more important for you in your life? The question is very different for everybody. Of
Because it
course, I
could
see.
be most important thing could be sitting in front of a lake and just looking at it your
Yeah,
whole day, every
because
day.
to me, as a lazy guy, I'm like, being lazy is like actually has its own reward,
Oh, it's
right?
awesome.
But I suppose, okay, the only thing I will say is that there has to be a dynamic where you're not always lazy, right? You
Yes,
can't
of
always be
course.
sit on your ass and do nothing.
Yeah.
That will be bad because I think for humans, we crave differences. We
Man, I
crave,
can't even sit on this chair like for long enough. Like these days, like I can feel tired
right?
more and more often from sitting. I was like,
Yeah,
it's like you can't be sitting. Like you haven't been designed to sit in a chair
right.
for hours on end a day. So like I make sure I move myself,
You know what you
every
should
day.
do? Dude, you got to do the Asian squat. That's why it exists, okay? The Asian squat, the Slavic squat, that's what it's all for. You got to
Oh yeah,
squat on
no.
the chair, bro.
These days, like I'm all into a lot of stretching because I definitely feel it. Like with age, the body just wants it more. So I've actually doing much more stretching than ever before. Like before, it was all strength training and this and that. These days, it's much more stretching, a good bit of cardio that I just feel like I need because it just feels better when you are properly stretched, when your joints are lubricated. Your body feels better. So I do a lot of that.
I think that, I guess, in that way, the best way for human to behave is that you got to create. This is the word I like to use that kind of came to me, um, or a phrase, let's just say, create your experience. I really like this saying. It's kind of popped into my head. I don't know if somebody probably have already said this somewhere, but I just kind of came to me like, oh yeah, curate your experience, because it's like any experience, as in, let's just say, imagine if you go to, it might be a bad example, but let's just say it's kind of cheeky, but imagine going to Disneyland, right? Disneyland. That experience is curated for you, right? They created an experience for you to enjoy,
Right.
right? So in the same way, I guess the best way is to do that for yourself. Like, okay, can I set up my life in a way
Yes.
where I'm having dynamic different things going on in my life that's make it exciting and doesn't make me sad or depressed because I'm not doing anything,
Yeah.
So there is definitely,
Very true.
there are times when you want to be lazy, but there are also times you want to be doing stuff. So how to know when to switch that on is the trick, right? It's like, okay, if you understand that this is bad if I do this for long enough, then how do you shift? Because the problem is with addiction,
Right.
it's like if you play something, if you want to do something that you really like, then you can shift into addiction territory where like, yeah, I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
doing this thing. But then it's like, okay, it's getting old, but then you can't stop. So meaning that you mentally had to be very strong to be like, okay, no, now I gotta shift gears.
Or yeah, you have to create systems essentially for that, which this
Right.
has been kind of the main theme of my life for a long time. Which I'm trying to find
Systematization,
a way
right?
to manage myself, right? To
Right.
like find because I tried so many things. Because this is the way it would go. You have like, okay, I have this need. I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna put a bunch of tasks myself on a calendar, and then I'm gonna do those tasks. No, not exactly like that. It doesn't work because like when you see a bunch of those tasks, you're like,
No.
and I don't want to do all those tasks, like freaking 12 tasks today. And immediately, like, it's like a subconscious reaction because you just don't feel like doing them all of a sudden. But I just made all those tasks yesterday. This is what I actually wanted to do. Came out from my own hand. I want to do this. But then you're looking at doing them like, no, I don't want to do it. Like, well, which is it? Like,
Well, that's the
so you have
argument
to
you
find
have with
some kind of
yourself.
middle way. Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
like, okay, but then it's literally feels like schizophrenic, like who is doing what? Which part of me wanted to do this thing? Like you have to fight it out somehow between these parts. You have to like find a way to, moderate these several parts and like, okay, this guy wants to do this, but this guy wants to go to the movies today. What are we gonna do about this, right? Actually, that's a good way. I really like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ability both it's to curate the experience, but also this dynamic problem of understanding what you want it to be, because it's true. It changes so often.
I think that maybe part of it is you want to have the long term. I think it's about being able to envision more clearly the long term vision that you have. Because the more you can do that, I think the more you can convince yourself to kind of take the short term pain of doing the task that perhaps you don't feel like doing because of the reward that eventually you're gonna get, right? And there are psychological studies, right? Like kids who can't control their urges, like
Yeah, yeah,
they're giving them the marshmallow too. Can you hold enough long enough to not eat it, and then you get more reward, right? So a case like that where the
yeah. Those are the winners.
relative success of these kids growing up, like they're very well to do eventually because they're able to maintain that kind of early cognition, let's just say, of long term reward system, right? They can see
Yeah,
long term.
maximizing the.
Yeah, exactly. But they're able to control themselves. But anybody who can't do that, who have short impulse control, like bad impulse control, they tend to do worse because all they're doing are just impulsive. And when they do it and then they regret it and then they do it again, right? They don't change as well. So because they can't envision the long-term goals, right? They can't envision like why that will be, so it's overwhelming for them to just go with the urges, right? Right now I want this, right? Satisfy the urge and then it's done, right? So because it's uncomfortable for you to like not have that short term like satisfy the urge right now, right? To like, okay, I'll wait, I'll go through this phase and then we'll go away, and then I build the stuff that I want to build long term, and eventually you have a. It's basically the better feeling that you get. Imagine if you're on a project, you're able to finish
Yeah,
it eventually. You're like,
overall.
okay, it feels great, right? But that's the thing. Short term are just short term. Like they're just ephemeral, right? And they're just gone
Right,
a
but
lot
they still
faster.
like arise. Like you see, like that's where it is difficult because like long term is difficult to manage because I guess there's even more uncertainty involved, but also there's just more
Right.
work, right? There's more
Right.
work in general that you have to delay that gratification. The question becomes how much you want to delay it for and why do you want to delay it, right? Like what is that balance and trade-off, which is just not apparent to, like so yeah, why not have what you can right now?
But you can have it right now, but you're not building anything, right? Imagine build a house. You can't just have a house right away. That takes months to build it,
Right.
right? So there are things in life where yeah, it's not gonna be that fast. But imagine if you were just like, okay, if imagine if you're just living away like, okay, I won't build. I'm just gonna build like a really simple structure for my house and that's it. But then it's structurally unfound because he didn't take the time to build it well. And
Yeah, it's
then,
not enough. It's not gonna be enough. Yeah.
right. So meaning that you do have to do something properly, right? For it to kind of last longer and be more useful, right? So I think that, yeah, long-term planning is definitely the fact that, okay, the fact that I think what distinguish us humans from animals is the fact that we're able to project into the future. Right? We're able to have an idea and hold it in our head. The abstract thinking, that's what help us to start planning, to start building, as opposed to just like, what's for dinner today? And that's what animal, right? They're just constantly hunting for food. They don't build anything. They don't build. I mean, some bird build nests, but but they don't have this kind of like, oh, let me think about this. What if I do this? What if I build this system, that system? All the wonders that we made, like in
Yeah, it's
architecture, it's all experiments, and then we figured out, oh, this is a interesting effect when you build it this high and this, So you kind of use that intelligence to kind of build up the systems, the understandings of force, of weight, of gravity, and all these things, right? So I think you can apply that for anything that we humans make, right? Like there are things that are out there that we make are so sophisticated that you need some special knowledge to understand, okay, what exactly is, and to make sure that things don't fail. And it's amazing how some of these things can be designed. Every time I deal with a car, it's like, wow, that's actually a very complicated machinery that people build. Like
yeah,
they figure it out, right? Okay, this part, and that part,
all
make it
those
work.
parts. Yeah,
If
put
anything
together.
part is going wrong, then okay, it's not gonna work. So it's yeah, but we built all this, right? That means somebody studied this, somebody knew about the mechanics of this, and then they built the specific tools and things, and that made it work, right? So fundamentally, we just kind of have all these. It's all desires, really. Because otherwise, why would you build any of this stuff? Why would you create any of this if there weren't some sort of? I mean, not everything is okay. Okay, even the desire to know is a desire. The desire to build a thing to figure out if it works, right? Because why would they build the first airplane? Because somebody was just thinking, oh, what if humans can fly? Right? That was just a question that they're curious about, and then they figured out how to do it, right? So that's the desire to know, oh, what's the result of it? Well, can we do it? So all of the things are like that, like shower thoughts. And then they're like, okay. And some people have the agency to just carry it out, right? Okay, well, let's see what happens if we build this thing. So, I
I was
mean,
just looking up. There, essentially, there are ways to improve impulse control. The mindful-based practices is one of them. So, like meditation is literally helps with that because it enhances prefrontal cortex activity, improves emotional regulation, and overall reduces stress. And apparently, that's when you're stressful, when you're stressed, essentially, when you don't have as much resources to manage this impulse. So, I think that's when these subconscious programs take over. You revert to basics essentially, right? Food, fat, sugar, pleasures, and that's when it takes over. But when you're resourceful, and I can see it in myself as well, you do make better choices. You do engage in less nonsense and you do more long-term oriented work. And then, of course, exercise has to do with it, small actions of self-control. So you do have to have intention, essentially, and awareness put on this thing to watch yourself, that you are not eating junk food. So you consciously try to make effort. Again, we talk about this a lot, where you at least try to move in the direction, right? Where you have to watch your diet, how you spend your time, and you have to self-regulate like this. And then even doing things such as there's some certain cognitive training things that you can do that help with inhibition, response inhibition, different exercises for emotion-related impulsivity, and even things like creating SMART goals, which are, I think the main point of them was that they're very specific. So they're tied to a specific objective, outcome, timeline. I'm going to do this by then because this, so I can do this. It's very, very specific. I've even encountered that doing that at work. There's certain work related and career related growth that some companies do make their employees do, and they do require you to set smart goals. So which is gonna be very specific, very precise. I'm gonna, like, I don't know, take something random, like I'm gonna increase my time on the treadmill by 10 minutes
Hmm.
in the month. It's very specific. And if it's something like this, you're going to achieve it because you know what the growth is. You know
Right.
the target that you need to hit, the timeline that you need to hit it with. So you're going to make all the incremental steps to reach toward that. And research shows that, yeah, this is the way to do goals. If you actually do want to achieve something, just make it super specific, make it time-based, and you're going to do it. Like, you're much more likely to do it, essentially. Because essentially, it's just all a way to trick yourself into doing stuff, right? It's
Right.
like, you just need to follow through. Like, everything's possible. It's just a matter of, but then this is what makes me think, like, who's tricking who here again? Like, do you not want to do the thing, or do you want to do the thing? Why do we have to do all these little tricks to make you do the thing? This is the part that's so strange. It's like we're constantly wrestling with our own psychology, right?
Right.
It's like, can we just effortlessly be, and for it to be fine and
No.
everything to be fine? No, you have to
No.
constantly, like, fall off the wagon and manage this and manage that. Like, do these people exist that they just are all regulated and they're all happy and everything just works out for them constantly?
Okay,
Where are
I
these
think
people?
technically I don't think they exist because even if you see a person who is very successful in a lot of different things, I'm sure there's something that they still have troubles with, they
Yeah,
like they're struggling with, but everybody else look at them as like, what are you talking about? You made it. Everything
yeah.
is fine. Like, what do you mean?
No,
But
there's always
there's
something.
always gonna be something, right? So I don't think there's no perfect person, right? They don't exist. But you're always gonna be having some kind of issues somewhere. But that's the thing, right? Some kind of traits that you have is gonna be very helpful in your career or in your business or whatever, because that just makes it kind of go very smoothly. Let's just say if you're a very curious person, you're gonna start making inventions and whatever, right? Some people are very hands-on. They make a lot of different things, and that can help you run a business or patent the thing or whatever, right? They have all these different aspects to it. I remember I was just looking at this one. That was amazing. There was a Japanese kid. He's like 10 years old, and he was doing this scientific kind of dissertation. They have an expo for like insects. So for studying insects. So he actually made a a presentation, and it was like kind of it became a newsworthy thing because
Oh,
he
wow.
actually proves scientifically that butterflies maintain their memories from when they were from a larva stage. So
Oh,
the
yeah,
kid
yeah, yeah.
was actually properly did it scientifically. Like
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
designed everything, and so a lot
Wow.
of scientists
That's really cool.
were kind of amazed that he was able to make the presentation. So they start asking him more questions, and like, it's legitimate. Like, wow, this he actually performed all the the baseline, the all the other parts of it, and it was amazing. The kid was just very scientifically minded. He's like, yeah, he was reading the scientific papers of like other scientists studying butterfly, because he's not unique in this one, because it's not like he came up with this. He just made it better, right? He
Right.
sees some
He
scientific
built upon
research.
existing science.
He sees that, oh, that's not perfect because they are using a kind of chemical to repel. Basically, what the experiment was, you set up a baseline and you set up this one, the other A and B, and where you do is you kind of from larva stage you expose them to some kind of chemical that they don't like, and then you shock them with electricity as larva. So over time, that larva associate the smell to unpleasantness, so they don't like the smells. They get away from the smell. So what he did was he made a trap where it's like a Y shape. So on one end of the Y is something that emits that smell, and on the other one are like sugar water or whatever. So most of the larvae, when they become butterflies, they still hate the smell, and they go to the so most of them,
It's
even
like an
after
experience that they can reference, even though,
translate from
yeah.
larva stage to so he just kind of made it better by using like more natural kind of flavor as opposed to some kind of chemical that kind of harmed the butterfly, you know? So, but it's still a very smart kid, right? So he kind of did this and then he sort of basically kind of independently proved that butterfly do indeed inherit that memory. So now the question is, does that happen with other animals or with humans even, right? Which I think is true. I do think that with epigenetic, I think we do inherit a lot of those kind of the past kind of not maybe not experience. I don't know how to, because obviously you don't know. It's not like Dune where
It's encoded in some way,
right,
right?
it's
Maybe
encoded
it's
in some way, but you
compressed.
don't have the memories. But it's kind of like something about that experience from the past is encoded into you.
Yeah, because if it could be a system like that where say that happened, right? There's some kind of chemical that if you encounter that chemical, it doesn't matter who encountered. The important part that would need to be encoded is that, yeah, this chemical stay away. And we already know that this happens on the genetic level because there are certain substances and smells and stuff we have reaction to. We have like a repulsive reaction to that's already built in. So that's how it would happen. It means that there is literally a process of capturing that information somehow in some form, in some shape on a genetic level. And of course, the magic of it all it is happening somehow. Like you're not doing it. You're not doing this consciously, purposefully. It's part of the system already. It's crazy.
So again, back to what we're saying, we're never in control. You don't get to control any of this, how you feel or how like, I mean, you can try in your life, moderate yourself, change the way that you think, but in terms of why it naturally arises for you specifically, that's just kind of, I don't know, passed on. Some of it is passed on. Some of it is just like you are a copy of your parents almost, right? So you are gonna have traits that are like essentially the same as them. So any problem they have emotionally, you're gonna have it too, potentially. So this is why you can see similarities from kids to parents. Like, oh, you're just almost like a carbon copy of the parent, right? So you have everything that comes with it, both the positive and negative, right? Not exactly, but you can inherit traits. So that's what happens, right? So you don't get to decide who are, you know, but you can change it in your life, right? How you want to go about it, how you want to treat and deal with the things that happen to you, or you are naturally kind of are sort of aware of
Then
what
even then you're locked in into certain things,
you
right?
are.
Like for myself, I wish I was a much more outgoing social person, but there's nothing. There's
Bro,
nothing about this that
I
I
have
can
a
do.
one funny story. What happens to me, for real, I was invited to this, I guess, dinner for this all these people that I don't know. I mean, I know them, but because I want to be nice, right? So they invite me to their, like, they like to do this, like this family that I know. They just love to have like all kinds of people, join in to have dinner together. And I literally had a panic attack and I had to leave. Like literally, it was all these
You
people.
came to the dinner?
Yeah, yeah, I came to dinner and was
Okay.
like, there's nothing in common I have with these people. There's nothing to talk about. I'm so awkward the whole time. But eventually, I don't know what happened to me, but something happened in my head
Oh,
where it's like I had to get the
gotta get out of
fuck
here.
out of here. I don't
Yeah.
know what I tried to hold it. I tried to be, like, okay, just wait until this is done. But something about it where it's so impulsive and almost kind of like uncontrollable. Like I just
Yeah.
did not I just want to be out of here. And that's what I did. Because I couldn't control it. It's not like, oh, I can just wait a
Right.
few more,
Yeah.
wait a few more minutes, a half an hour, and then it's done. I couldn't do it. I'm just like, I'm sorry,
Wow.
I have to go. That's it.
Right.
Boom, and then just gone. It's like, it's very rude in terms of,
Yeah.
social etiquette and whatever, but I'm like, I
Yeah.
couldn't it's so fucking awkward because then I had to apologize later, be like, I'm sorry for what happened, but then I had to come clean. Like, I have social anxiety. I'm sorry. That happened.
Right.
I didn't want that
Yeah.
to happen, but it happened because you can't have any excuse for that. Like, you just have to come clean.
Yeah.
Like, why did you do that? Right? Because it's like, it's fucking rude, right? It's like, it's rude. You just
Yeah.
left. But like, why? But so it's embarrassing, but like, well, okay, well, that happened.
That's what it looks like.
That's
Yeah.
what it looks like because at that time, And it's torturous too, because like I'm realizing like this is a thing. Like it's not like I wasn't aware that this is happening. I was aware, okay, this is bad, but why
But
is it happening?
this
But
is the
why?
extent of it.
But
Yeah.
it's happening though. Like I just couldn't control it. It's like I have to get out there. This is not a place where I'm panicking, right? I'm having a
Yeah.
heart attack almost. But
Yeah.
why? What the hell? This is just sit there and not say anything
Just
and
be
just
present with other people.
that's it, right? Just smile as whatever. Because you
Smile
don't
and
have to
nod.
you don't have to talk to them. You can just sit silently eating. That's it. They talk across the
Yeah,
table. That's
that's
fine,
what I
right?
was doing that time, was having dinner with you and the Chinese folks that
Yeah,
invited me in Vancouver. That's it. All I was doing is like, all right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
That's
not that bad for me. It's like just enjoy the food and
but
smile, and that's
but
it.
somehow I don't know why, but it just at that time I was just like something happened. I don't know why, but I had to do that. So I get it, right? Like it's for some people, it's like that, where they just can't socialize to help to save their life.
Whatever
They
reason.
just couldn't do it. And I know that I had this before, but maybe not as this bad because obviously I don't even get into social situations like that, where I basically
Especially like with
can.
large people gatherings. That's a yeah, it's a different one.
Yeah, so I don't know, something about that, right? That means within me somehow you have this aversion to kind of large group of people where you're gonna like it's just socializing. I don't know, something about it that doesn't jive well with me. It's weird. I mean, I wish I could just like to be a social butterfly, just like talk to people like normally.
Yeah, because I mean that's a big part of life too, right? Like for me, like the thing that comes to mind when something like that happened to me, when I was think I was hanging out with some guy that I met through an acquaintance. So it was just like a new acquaintance that I don't even remember how this happened, but they invited me to some party of their friends. So I just barely know them, and then invited me to a house with their friends where I know nobody. So it was
Right.
such a funny situation because they invited me, and that's what people do, that's the Canadian folks, and there's everybody there from all kinds of cultures, like, but I know nobody there, and it was the first time where I've even been to like a stranger's house like that. And it was a proper party, and the place is small, so it's all quiet, intimate, a ton of people, someone's house, very small place, very small, and I'm like there, and I'm realizing what this is, and I'm like, and what am I going to do now? I'm going to talk to all these strangers like, hello, I am this and this. And like, no, I don't even want to do that. Immediately, no, it's like my phone. I like got my phone. It's like, all right, I got to call somebody. I think I even called you maybe. Because I was like, yeah, what's going on? I kind of made myself go outside. Like, oh yeah, I need to talk there. And I just made myself leave the whole situation
Right.
without even thinking about it. Without
Yeah, yeah,
even
yeah. He's like, I got
just
to
like,
get out of here.
yeah, it's like, I'm not going to do that, because just imagine, like, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, oh you're and this, and I go, and and I'm not gonna do that with these people. I have no idea. I can't let these people know how weird I am. I don't want to do that today.
Small talk is terrible for us.
That's like, what's the problem, right? What's
Yeah,
just
what is the
talk to
problem?
it's just
What is the problem?
everybody does this. Who cares, right?
Right. Just yeah, just have a good time, talk to other people. Like interesting, there gonna be some interesting people, right? But somehow it's just like, and it's funny too. In that situation I just explained, I get out there, I get into my car, and I drive home, and I could just see myself like, but damn it! But it's like, but
Y-
yeah, like it just happened. Okay, yeah, this is what are you gonna do.
Yeah,
There's nothing you can do. It's too late. So
but that's kind of like how I think about it, is that, well, okay, but this is the reality though, that I don't want to do it. So what are you gonna do about this? It's
yeah,
like, I guess you could work on this, I guess, consciously, like with the impulse control type of thing. But I feel like strong aversion to that, to the point where, like, well, it feels like a waste of time. It's unpleasant. And then I do not have stuff in common with most people that I interact with. That's just what I noticed.
so
So then when this happens, you just put two and two together, and you like choose the better use of your time.
yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like introverted people are just you can't make them into an extroverted person. They're just not gonna work, right? No matter how many exercise you're gonna do, it won't
Yeah.
work because you're naturally are not like you're just a different system, right? Your setup is like, I don't need socialization drain my battery. That's the premise, right? extroverted people fill the battery when they talk to people. So it's a fundamentally different thing. So you're almost like different species, right? Where yeah, you just go according to what it means for you. It means that you need less socialization. That's gonna be the end of that. You're not gonna change it. I mean, you can improve yourself by not being a dork, an awkward, sort of
Yeah, you still
make
need
it.
some of it.
Yeah, you don't want to embarrass yourself like what I did, but you wouldn't be able to change yourself like that, right?
Yeah.
You can try to kind of limit and sort of be more in control of yourself, but you're not gonna fundamentally change. So that's what I'm saying. Like you gotta go according to who you are. Not to say you don't change anything, but it's more like you gotta work with what you have, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just not gonna have certain things. You're just not given it. You're not born with it. And there are certain things you will discover, like you just can't get it. It won't work.
That's what I'm saying, is that it's interesting that, we were talking about this freedom of choice and everything, and then it's just no matter how you spin it, you're just this guy
Yeah.
who somehow developed into this guy, and then your only choice is to be this guy.
I'm just this weird guy. That's it.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, what
that's
else are you
it.
gonna do?
What are you gonna do about it?
Like free me from that version of me exiting a banquet just because you can't talk to people.
Yeah,
Right? Or how do I get
yeah.
free of that guy? I can't. Apparently I just can't. It just won't work. So work within your means, right? Like don't go out there and sort of pursue goals that are just literally impossible for you, but the thing is, how do you discover that? That's the
That's the
trick.
thing. Yeah,
That's the trick. How
you
would
still
you
do
know?
trial and error.
How would you know that you're not set for this? You're not, you know? Because that's the
You do trial and error, because like God knows, I've tried, dude. I've gone to places by myself, into different cultures, into different, like, where just I earnestly show up, like, all right, what's going on here?
yeah.
Oh, fuck this shit.
I
And
remember
then the
it.
response is the same towards me as well. So I'm like, okay, then I don't belong in any
I
of these
remember,
places.
right? You told me this is funny, man. You went to that, like, I think they're Muslims
Yeah,
gathering.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
Pakistani. I think.
yeah.
I think you went to like pure, like they're all from
Yeah.
there, and you're the only
I kept
white
doing
guy.
this. I kept going to this. I kept doing this to the Filipino community.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I engaged with some Koreans, where like I somehow I end up being the only like
yeah.
white guy
The
there,
only
and because I'm just wanted to hang out with some people.
yeah,
But then you realize, like, well, wait, people don't do that.
yeah. It's like
People
you.
don't just waltz into a different culture's party where everybody's of that culture there. Not really. Because that's the reason they're all there.
Yeah.
Because they have stuff in
To
common.
talk about, right?
Yeah.
Where you like, you stick out.
Yeah, and then it's so funny, because I'm like, it's like people, yeah, I'm not part of that group, right? So
Yeah.
we can't even
So it's
bond.
awkward for them and
It is
awkward for you.
for everybody.
Yeah.
So I've done that enough times where, like, okay, then I can't even do that. So, like, what are your options? You do want to find your place in your tribe, but when you are looking, you keep looking and you're not finding it, the conclusion is you're from a different planet or something. You're not on the right planet, because you can't find the people who you jive with. Because, I mean, just, singular examples, where you do find like that. But even then, it's like groups of people specifically.
Yeah, you have
Because
to have
I
something.
tried hanging out with the Russian folks here, right?
Yeah.
Again, that's not aligning on the stuff they're
Now
into,
you have
the way of life. I have nothing in common again.
reverse cultural shock, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can't get with the Russian program anymore
Yeah.
because things are so different now with where you
Yeah, because
live.
there's also certain, norms and what's popular and what's interesting, and I'm not into that. I have different stuff, and I can't talk about it with anybody there, because they're not into it. So it's just, it doesn't work, the connection doesn't happen.
So always saying, you just have to find the other weird guy or weird girl that you can hang out with,
Yeah.
Basically.
I've been seeing a lot of these introvert memes lately, and they're really funny. I was like, holy smokes, that's true. It's like, I'm going to send you some of them, because there are thousands of people who are like liking them. It's like, yep, this is
what's going on.
This is exactly right. I'm like, wow. So there is such a thing as a introvert reality, essentially, where you kind of are, a lot of people are doing the same way, behaving the same way, and
Yeah.
thinking in the same way about things. And it's just kind of seems like a much more private reality.
It
You
is.
just do stuff by yourself.
Like, yeah, like to be, everything is more private. Yeah.
Yeah.
No big gatherings or whatever. It's just how it works, right? You're better. You feel better when you're not with other people,
Yeah.
basically. Not to say that
Yeah.
you don't hang out with anybody at all. Like, it's just kind of like you like to be by yourself, more or less,
In general, yeah.
generally. So, yeah, there are times when you have to go out there and hang out and what have you. You will enjoy yourself, but yeah, but only occasionally. It can't be surrounded with. This is why, like, I guess it sucks for work though, because imagine you had to
Yeah.
work in an office or work in an environment where you had to you
Dude,
had
it's
to
the
work with other
worst.
people. You're like, you don't want to hang out, or you don't want to be
No.
in close proximity with so many
You
people, right?
you're overstimulated at that point, for sure.
Right.
So I don't even know if I ever gonna be want to be in that situation just from that standpoint alone, because it's just gonna be so insufferable,
Right.
just
Because
from
it
the.
creates anxiety for you.
It is,
Some
yeah.
kind of stress for you. It's like,
It
I
drains you.
had to deal with this environment. Like, you just you work better by yourself when you're like, okay, I'm in my space. I can do whatever I need to do.
Yeah, because
It's
it's not like I'm in a task that requires two people like with hammers be in the same location or something, right?
yeah.
It's a different type of work. Like all remote work can be done. I mean, all digital work can be done remotely these days. So
So it's the question is, okay, how much of that do you decide to suffer through for the sake of
yeah,
holding the
exactly.
job? Or, like some jobs or what have you, for sure it's bad for your health, or like it's bad for your mental health, right?
Yeah, it's just because
But
it's just an environment is terrible.
but then you still have to choose, okay, what do I not say no to the job? And yeah, my mental health will be good, but like, well, I'm not gonna make any money then. So
Well, that's the something that I've been kind of thinking a lot, lately, because I'm in that position where I don't have a job. And the more I think about it, dude, the more I'm like, I, I, I don't know, don't, I can't motivate myself enough to participate in that type of activity where I legitimately just don't like it, and there's not enough purpose for me
yeah,
to be like there, just to make money. It's not there. Like it doesn't work. Like the motivational structure is not there. So I'm like, that's kind of a problem.
mm,
Because I mean, maybe it's way too of an idealistic way of thinking, but I'm just thinking more and more that it becomes not worth it, because then your whole existence is then just to to get money and survive, and just to sustain yourself. But that's not what the soul wants.
yeah.
You can't
Well,
just
you're not alone.
live an empty life like this.
You're not alone. A lot of people are feeling this way right now,
You
right?
do want to find something that you love to do. I don't think you can escape not doing that,
Yeah,
because you're going to burn out, you're going to be stressed out, and it's going to be all for nothing. I don't think
yeah,
you can afford to spend your life like this, like just earning money for the sake of earning money. I don't think that's what it's all about. Even if it comes to not having money, like I'm at that point where like I'm really thinking that way. Of course, I've never been in a situation in life where I've not had money before, so I may be just extremely, uh, privileged or something. But I still think that that's just something I naturally arrive to. So I'm just, these are my conclusions these days. So if money runs out, my song may change because I might have motivation or something. But for now, like I don't see how it would work out. It's
yeah,
for the job, I'd need to find something personally motivating there, like where it aligns with my actual values. Like either we're working on some kind of project, that somebody specifically benefits, or some kind of something aligned with my actual interests and values. If that's not there, if it's just some random product or something, or some just like marketing or something for some kind of toy that doesn't have to do anything with anything, I wouldn't want to do it, because that motivation that naturally gets created when you're working on something that is meaningful to you, it makes things effortless, essentially. Like it makes you want to be there, and everything else stems from that. Because if you don't want to be there, you're a drag for everybody, and everything is drag for you. It's
yeah.
nonsense. You don't want to be in that situation.
Which is why it's tough, but like there's the reason why you want to work on your own stuff, right? Because I
Yeah,
can't see, because I have read a lot of other people's opinions on this too. Like a lot of people are having a hard time with jobs and stuff, and their industries are not working out, and they have to kind of shift gears and stuff. And basically, a lot of people, what they're saying is like, yeah, it feels like not a lot of work makes even sense anymore,
right.
because a lot of it is just like corporate driven BS and just
Yeah,
more money for the shareholders,
shuffling things around.
whatever, right? So you don't find value in that anymore because you're just a number. You're just a piece of, a pawn. They just use you up and they kick you out, and that's
I
it.
really do think it has something to do. Besides, so there's a couple of main aspects to it. One of them is definitely meaning, right? Like, what is the meaning of this work? Because, like, in my previous position, I've literally encountered such situations where the projects were so just bad from all sides, from the business side, from the client side, etc., that the work that you would like, so you would have a project and you have tasks, right? Like, we have to do this task. But it got to a point where everybody knew, including myself, that this task that we're supposed to do is essentially not even needed by the time that it will be completed. Like, and it will not do anything. It will not accomplish anything. So you'd be in this weird position where you're like, oh, you have to do this work, which is completely meaningless, because by the end of it, it will not have any meaning. It will not do anything. But it's technically your work. It's why you are hired and why you're being paid money. And even for visibility's sake, you would need to be doing that. But that felt so terrible, dude. That felt like I felt such negative emotions toward it, because I myself had to do it, because I would have to, like, okay, let's make this plan. Even though I know for a fact that it's not needed. Like, it essentially it's not doesn't even need to happen, because it will not change anything. That it was like, well, I definitely want to do that, because that's just dumb. This is not even, it is pretend play, but it's so useless that, like, there's no purpose to it. You're not accomplishing anything for anybody. You're literally wasting your time of your
Yeah,
life
bro.
doing this nonsense that nobody needs.
This reminds me, one of the ways that they torture people back in China in the 60s, when during the Cultural Revolution, what they do is, for any of the people that they want to punish, one
All
of the
meaningless
worst
work.
thing one of the worst thing they do is they give you a whole bunch of brick. You're supposed to lay them up as a little wall, and at the end of the day, they push it down. You're gonna do it again, and on and on and on. That's what you got to do with that again and again and again until they say you can stop. And some people go mad, like, just by doing that. They're like, they rather off themselves than do that. Like, that's how bad it could get. Where imagine, for a month you'd be doing that every single day, right? The For some people, that's too much.
Oh, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the trials of Naropa. He was a key figure in Tibetan Buddhism. When he found his teacher, he sought out his teacher. That was one of the things that his teacher was making him do. He was making him construct this temple, or a little structure, essentially out of stones, of heavy stones in the middle of the mountain. And when he would finish it, he would come and, like, destroy it, and he would tell him, like, do
Right.
it again.
Do it again.
So he was, but that whole actual watched little movie, like, reenacting that thing, Italian movie, for some reason Italian, about that specific story. But that was the trial of the teacher, where, like, you don't even know. So imagine you're like a young person, you're seeking spiritual guidance, you find a guy who is, everybody says this is the guy that you need to find, and, like, that's the only guy who can teach you. And you come to him and he's like, all right, this is your
Do
this
this.
is your task, do this. You do this. He comes in, destroys it. It's like, nah, this is not good enough. This actually needs to be right here on this position. You do it again. Okay, I guess made a mistake. Again, he's like, no, you need to make it square. So keeps changing his mind, right? So, and I need to remember what was the whole teaching, because he was trying to show him something, right? The teacher is making you. He was making him come to a certain conclusion but I don't remember what that conclusion was. But it's interesting that it's also was related to this essentially meaningless work, right?
Right.
You had to, I think the conclusion was around the fact that you need to essentially have complete trust in the master and not question his methods. So maybe he was trying to like just get him used to the fact that you need to do anything I say. But it's true that it's like you would face this wall of like, well, this is meaningless. Why am I doing this, right? And
Or that this is the
there's
idea that, in the West is basically Sisyphus, right?
Sisyphus, yeah,
Yeah, like the idea that if you keep doing this again and again, what's the purpose? What's the meaning of it, right?
yeah.
And that ultimately comes into maybe your purpose of derived meaning might come from such act of meaningless work. Like you're gonna have to derive something out of it, right? You're gonna have to justify everything that happens because that seems like what humans' fate is, right? Where like you know, we exist. We think
That's what it was. He commanded Naropa to repeatedly build and dismantle a stone bridge or structure over a pond as one of the 12 major trials to shatter his ego, pride, and attachment to results.
right,
Whoa. So, but if they do that like in a corporate environment, is that
right.
is that technically spiritual practice? What the hell?
Dude, they just compel you to do what they want you to do, you know?
But then what's the
They
difference?
destroy your ego, and therefore
Yeah,
they can control you. They can
right,
tell you what you should be thinking, right?
right. But isn't that
That will be a bad
that
thing. That would
that
be
is
a
a bad
bad
thing?
thing because you have no, you don't have autonomy anymore, right? You don't think for yourself. You essentially, see, that's the other thing that's kind of dangerous with certain, let's just say, I don't know, spiritual practices and what have you, because the fact that you have to trust that this is the process and you can, like, how would you know, right? It's like, what if this is a cult or whatever?
That's what I'm saying. This is exactly the conclusions I came to. So I just read that explanation to the end. And yeah, it was indeed that trial was done to Naropa to instill devotion and surrender to the guru.
Right.
But then,
By destroying
yeah,
your ego.
yeah. But then that means, how do you know if that person is worth that devotion?
And
That's the question.
also the other problem is, okay, once you do say subdue or destroy the ego, well, the problem is now what you have is a vacuum, right? Where
Yeah, now you're
all
just
kinds
kind
of
of a
forces
slave.
will come in to take its place. Just like,
Yeah,
in physics, like the space would equalize, right? In down in the water, like deep enough, right? The idea of pressure is that the pressure will always equalize, right, from a high to low. So that the basically baked into the nature of reality is that we have these physical phenomena of equalization. Essentially, you can't have the forces will naturally try to balance it out, right? So you can't really hold different pressures unless you have sufficient force that does not allow that to happen, right? Which is why you have submersibles, submarines creating that environment where there's so much pressure trying to eliminate that space underwater, right? So the same idea. If you have to let ego go, then what's going to come in then, right? What are you allowing to kind of take hold? Because you can't have
right.
that emptiness, essentially, or something's going to come into it, right? Or can you
Yes,
have a perfect emptiness where, I don't know, something that's there's nothing in there? Because as far as human mind is like, we can't really put that thought in our head and like they're gonna create cognitive dissonance. Like if there's nothingness, it compares to it's as opposed to something compared to nothing. You can't have nothing without the other half, right? Without the contrast of having something. So if you can say achieve nothingness, what does that even mean, right? Can somebody really get to a state where you literally? But isn't that what the kind of Buddhist dogma is kind of like you're trying to liberate yourself from this system of reincarnation, meaning that your goal is to escape that. So meaning the nature of your existence has changed so much that you you
That's the
escaped
thing.
that.
That's the thing. You don't even know what that is like, because
Right. What does that
it
even
sound it sounds like you're destroying yourself.
right.
But if there's no self in you, then it's like you're ceding control to someone else. That's what it means.
But
So
maybe that's
you're no longer yours anymore. You're not even there.
right. Maybe the underlying premise is that you are everything and everything is you, and you're just destroying the specific version of you subjectively, and you're returning back to the mainframe, so to speak. Like, is that what it is?
Dude, how do you know all this? This is legitimately what they write about and talk about. This is the
And
actual
I
explanations.
don't read any scripture, okay? It's just
Yeah,
it just sort of makes sense to me.
which means that you're literally channeling from the source.
Yeah, but I don't believe in the stuff though. Like,
That's the tricky part, is that you may not believe in it, but it may work like that. You may play the guy who is not believing in the stuff, while being the actual guy
it's like that
who
meme
works
from
like that.
Doom, right? Of course he's the Mahdi. Only the
Yeah,
Mahdi would say that he's not the one. But like I can theorize that, okay, that could be a theory, right? Just
yeah.
like we were talking about
That
consciousness,
that
right? The
sounds
idea,
like a working theory. Yeah.
right? The idea of nirvana would just be like, okay, you just gonna join that whole of everything then. You're not
But
gonna have your
so then what it means, if you did that as a living human being, then what lives in your body is God, essentially, at that point. Once your ego is no longer there, God lives through your body,
because basically I think what they're
right?
saying is the ego defines the subjective you, right? The
Yeah.
subjective I, meaning that once that is like you basically, yeah, the idea is return to the mainframe, essentially. Return back to the fabric of reality, which is one, right? You are experiencing life.
But what returns where if your body is still here?
I think there, okay, according to what I know of Buddhism, the idea is to escape the reincarnation, right?
Yeah.
So it's not this life. You're trying to make sure your next life you can return to the source and not do this
But then
whole
if you
thing again.
did dissolve your ego during lifetime, what happens to your physical life?
Jeez.
That's the question.
Has anybody done that though?
Well, that's what it seems like, because one of the stages in, for example, in this Tibetan Buddhism, yeah, is to uh, shatter the ego, pride, and attachment to results. But with ego shattered, what does that existence look like? Do you, because that to me, it means that you as a person stop existing, and then someone else embodies inhabits your body. That's what it looks like.
Which is why I feel like, okay, I can correlate this with what you're saying about the danger of meditation. For one example, is like, yeah, that could be a problem where imagine if you have multiple personality disorder, where you can meditate yourself into that, right? Like imagine if you seed your ego, but then yeah, who's taking over that, right?
Who is
Who
taking
are
over?
you
That's
then?
the question.
Who is the body? Who is in the body? Who
Yeah,
is
because because it seems like this is like a suicide.
it? Essentially,
Psychologically, you're stop existing.
psychologically,
So your
psychologically,
personality, what this you are,
yeah,
it's no longer there.
you're
So
destroying
something else takes
you're
place.
destroying your psyche. Yeah, basically, you no longer will recognize you as I, right? You
That's
no
crazy.
longer,
Yeah,
right. So that's like an alien
that's
existence
crazy.
almost. Like you just don't recognize yourself. I guess you
You're
can
not
do
even
it.
there.
I guess you can do
You're
it.
not
Yeah,
there to
you can
recognize
get
it.
to a
Yeah,
point where you literally do not recognize yourself as such, right? But
yeah,
that's so different to what we used to in a normal kind of wake of life. Then that's you can't even imagine what that even feels like, right? Imagine you
yeah.
can't recognize. So I mean, some people suffer from,
So there's no conception of self, almost like, right?
but you know, like I know, remind me of some people who suffer from they can't recognize faces, right? Some people do suffer from unable to recognize faces. I don't even know what that even would look like. Do you just see a blur in front from other people's
Yeah,
face, or
you don't know who the person is, right? You
right,
just
or you can't recognize. Imagine not able to recognize, or
a
people,
face in
for
general.
example, right, or people who suffer from Alzheimer's disease, right? They don't remember you, right? You could be you're their family member. They don't remember you, but they see you, but they don't remember. So imagine if you're able to meditate yourself into an existence where you don't even recognize yourself, but then what do you recognize this? If that person looks themselves in the mirror, what would they do? They just see a person? They will recognize a person, but they wouldn't recognize that that's who that they're whatever former identity that they had. They wouldn't see it, right? So essentially, you just see the person, and that's it. That's the person. I can identify that as a human being. But then, what do you do though? What is your motivation? What else do you? Because you're still alive.
That sounds like just you're going to be so confused at how you're going to function.
But then you're saying that these people exist, like they have done it, meaning they
Yeah,
can still
it's an
interact normally with
oh
other
yeah,
people.
it's in I mean,
Do
yeah,
they though?
I mean that's at least in the lore. That's what the lore is. That's the story of Naropa and his teacher Tilopa. It's
But
cornerstone in
but is
Tibetan
there
Buddhism
anybody claiming right now alive
right now.
that
No, that's always the tricky part. That if whichever they're established teachers who have been teaching
yeah,
for decades, but if you talk to them, they're just a person, and
right?
they never
They
claim they're
don't say that
enlightened,
they have.
because that would be like almost like a little contradiction. So if there are any, they behave in a way where you can't detect it. So what it looks like from the inside, that's the ultimate question. My suspicion is that it could be that they are just inhabited by something else at that point. It's just it
Yeah,
knows how to behave as a person,
because
which
I keep
is
thinking
very freaky when you describe it like that.
I keep thinking about the cases of people who suffer from multiple personality disorder, right? It's like something about their trauma where they creating these additional characters to protect them, right? So trauma can do that to people, right? Like there's some like if you're so shocked about something happened to you and you're predisposed in that way that you can split your personality. So that is something that can happen to people. So meaning that so imagine in this case you meditate yourself sufficiently to a point where you eliminated your own ego. So but this is what I keep thinking about like well something else going to come in, right? You can't just
Yeah,
like
what is the governing principle, right? Of because you can think of self as this centralization, right? The centralization of all your impulses and everything. There's a certain responsibility there as well, because as we just talked about the impulses and things like that, you can't really be. Some people are so bad at impulses they go out and do crime and hurt other people because they're not, they think that's an acceptable course of action. So it's that, like, you would have to have some kind of guiding structure that would take charge of this specific body and make sure it works according to certain principles, some of which will have to still be survival. But if that ego is not there, which is what I can imagine is the structure, then what is going on? What's
I mean,
happening?
we hear this all of the times of spiritual practitioners kind of their initial struggle is like, okay, I'm awakening and then what? They feel a sense of detachment where like, well, I don't fit in anymore now. So what do I do now? And they feel like this sort of like once you do get to that stage where you are very detached, it's almost an alien feeling. It's like, oh, this is no longer, you don't feel like human anymore, right? Almost where, well, yeah, and now what? You feel depressed. You feel like, well, there's nothing worth doing, right? Because you feel like, okay, well, once you awaken, then nothing is worth it. Nothing is worth trying to kind of motivate yourself to do because apparently,
That's actually what I encounter a lot in reading a lot of serious people on Reddit. Like, there's a lot of personal accounts for this. I just recently encountered a comment talking about this specifically because some people mentioned that it was very helpful to them that they had deep interests, like hobbies and stuff, before they even participated in the spiritual practices, because it helped them to stay like grounded and rooted post awakening, because kind of one of the effects is realizing the inherent lack of meaning in existence, which can be extremely destabilizing if you have nothing to root yourself down to, existence. And I thought to myself, and it's kind of true as well, because I definitely compensated a lot with sticking to my interests during, all my experiments as well. And I never let go of them because, yeah, it felt kind of scary to not do them, because if I completely let go of all of this, yeah, I would stop being myself essentially.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely a fear of doing that. So the counterbalance of this and like of what happened to me is that I realized like, well, no, I do like being myself. So I don't want to be free of myself, like you said, because that's scary. That means you're no longer there, man. But that's death.
Okay,
That's what death is.
first, I kind of said that as a joke, sort of, but I get what I get what you mean. It's
But every joke, you said it for some reason, and that's
right. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different
to
takes.
be free of yourself is death.
Right, because the ego is no longer going to be there. You essentially all seize all
You
of yourself as you were, right? That's it. That's like in this, because one could believe that, okay, in the what we're talking about,
Such a person would have no problems with like sacrificing themselves immediately for somebody else,
right?
because there would be no reason not to.
Yeah, that's the whole. It's like that. This is the hope that basically gives people psychologically when you do kind of walk the spiritual path. If this is the thing that you believe, you essentially transcend death, because if you believe that we are all like everything is you is everything, in that like you are just an aspect of the world, then there is no death, in the sense that, I mean, death only applies to you as the subjective I,
Okay, but
right?
what would be the reason for you? Like, you already exist as a person with an
Mm-hmm.
ego, and that's majority of people. So is that? It's not like everybody gets enlightened in a lifetime, right?
No.
So why would this process need to happen to some people? But more importantly, why would anybody want this process to happen to them?
Yeah, that's the question,
Right?
right? It's like, why are we
Because it
even
seems like there is an ego, which is all you know about your existence right now. And then there is something else. Like again, it's unknown. And the question is, you get to, if you're curious enough, you want to peek what it's like on the other side. To me, it seems like it's a trick. Like somebody's trying to trick you into non-existence for some reason. But if it is you who are doing this, it is without your current knowledge, because your current limited you doesn't know this, right? So it's something doesn't add up here. The only thing I can think of is that the you as everything is knowing what you are knowing plus everything else right now, and they have some kind of influence or control over you. But then this creates this very strange duality where there's the you that you know of yourself and some kind of other you that you don't know of,
Mm.
which is akin to being like two different things, two different people.
But isn't the idea of nirvana is that you no longer under any sort of ego, right? The idea is that you let go. Is that, I don't know if I'm understanding this correctly, but it feels like what nirvana is trying to do, the idea is you achieve a state where, well, they say it, the eternal bliss, right? The idea that you no longer have to suffer all this cycle of constantly being a subjective I or subjective thing, right? Even an insect or whatever, they would have a subjective experience, right? So I think that's what they're trying to do then. The idea of Buddhism is like you try to
But
not have that.
but then that's the psychological death, I think.
But how would you even know anything then? Then you wouldn't even. You would just exist, or you would just. How would you even say?
I
It's
think you can't imagine or conceptualize it at
no, you
this
can't
level.
conceptualize. Right, you can't
Yeah.
conceptualize it. But somehow that's some people who does follow Buddhism, then it means that they take this as the desirable result, meaning that whatever they're experiencing now is inferior. It's not good enough. It's not good. It's no bueno, right?
Yeah, like essentially they get tired of it.
Right. The constant sort of experiencing life as a
Yeah,
subjective experience.
yeah.
So that's the idea, right?
I guess that makes sense. So technically, I mean, theoretically, it could be like that. So imagine you're dreaming. You want to sleep and you have a dream.
Mm.
And you're living this life as Ben, the guy
Yeah.
who, but then you get really tired of having all these social anxiety attacks of
Yeah.
you really get fed up with that character. And you decide like, well, I'm going to stop dreaming that character. That's kind of what it looks like now.
You know what they say, right? Like our life experience is just God experiencing life as the universe as a
It's us, really.
as us, right? But if we go along with that line, it's just like, but then we're freaking tired of being God in the subjective experience, right?
Right.
Like we want to return to the source, return to the such idea as I don't know,
That's
like
just an idea.
the universal existence or whatever, the fabric of reality, or
But see, that's just whatever it is because
right?
you don't know what it is,
It's
what
just
it's
an
like.
idea, right? It's like
Yeah.
almost like a fiction. I can write this as a fiction.
Yeah. It's a concept that you like. Could it be? It could be,
It
but
really be?
what it makes it that because we don't know, right? We don't
Right.
know what this reality is, how it works.
So that's
The
why
ultimate problem is that it could be anything,
that's
but it
why it's
could be
scary.
this.
But that's
Yeah, it
why it's
is scary.
scary because you tried it, right? You try to meditate, and it
Yes.
kind of fucks things up a bit.
It
right?
essentially it goes that way where it is. Yeah. It I guess it kind of faces you with the reason I got scared is it started being like too real. And I'm like, because if it is real, then I mean, you have to die anyway, right? But to die while you're still alive, that's a whole other type of a undertaking, which is why would you want that? Because you can take a look at this life like, yeah, I have this life, I'm going to live it through. Why wouldn't you want to live it through as you? Isn't that what we're here for?
I mean, only if you buy in to the idea that you need to escape reincarnation, right? That's the idea. Because if you don't do it now, well, you're gonna do it again. It's gonna happen again. So if you do it this life, right?
But but still you have to buy into the fact that you want to escape all this. Still,
Right.
there are people who don't want to escape any of this.
Yeah.
They're completely happy and content, and they're like, "Fine, I'll be here to
Let's
whatever."
find out what I will be next one, all right? The next life.
Yeah. But this is what's interesting is that to essentially people get attracted to this teaching once they've gone through a bunch of searching in their life, and when they come to the teaching, they're like, "Yeah, first of all, this makes sense to me." Like, because they feel the tiredness, like somehow they're not like they've been searching for what everything, and it's just there's some kind of urge in them, and then this answers the question, and they realize, oh, okay, that's the process, and they just go through it. I tried doing that, and in the middle of it, I realized, like, yeah, no, I don't want that.
I don't want that.
That does not sound bueno to me. Because why would I want that? This existence is all I know.
But then there's nobody who have achieved that at all so far, right? I mean, in modern time. I mean, everybody's saying they're
How would you
trying
know?
to.
But how would you know? It's easily would be kept under wraps.
So those
Half the
people,
planet could be that right now.
so they would not say anything about what they have experiencing and nothing.
We don't know. They may be, as I'm saying, they may be in the hands of God at that point.
So they're just
Who would
like,
not be interested in uncovering any of it.
so imagine they become zombies. Like they
Yes.
escaped, and then all they were was just the shell of a human being, where they just
Yeah,
carry out as like
as somebody else. Not automatons. I believe there could still be essentially a much more intelligent
person.
driver would be there. Yeah.
But it seems like nobody have said anything about like, well, actually, what you're seeing right now is
But they wouldn't be there. That's the thing. Imagine if
But wouldn't you be able to tell that this person is too different? Like they're not acting like a
not
normal.
if it's the most supreme intelligence in the whole universe is doing that. They would be able to trick anybody.
But why wouldn't they?
Imagine that.
Why wouldn't they tell people like, "Yo, I mean, not I, but I have achieved. Okay, the person who was in me already achieved this. This is for real, guys. You got to do it. You got to
But that
meditate."
person would be gone. The achiever is not there anymore. The achiever dies.
Okay, but then what's left? Then they still act normally as humans, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They just do stuff according to different logic, motivations, and intelligence,
So
which is
if
not
you ask
fathomable to
them
you.
like, who are you? What's their answer then?
They'd play along.
They will say, "I'm still,"
Like,
say,
I'm Steve.
imagine,
Yeah.
I'm still Steve, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You would not be able to detect the difference. It's
Jesus.
almost like if you wanted to, and this is just an analogy, but say somebody was doing like a puppet show and you came along and wrestled out the dolls from the guy who was controlling them and continued the show. Nobody would know anything changed because you'd be able to act out the show where it's like seamless enough if you know what you're doing.
But that's bullshit, though. You know what should
That's my
happen?
theory.
You should happen is like this: whoever achieved Nirvana, that person just poof, gone. You could be talking to this guy, and then poof, he's gone. That's it.
Physically.
Yeah.
Physically.
Like you understand? Okay, he done it.
But then you'd never know if, because what did they get?
Yeah.
Right?
They wouldn't be able to tell you.
Because if the only that was my, like, a lot of questions like that from new people who are trying to figure out Buddhism. They're trying, like, well, then what are you? You're trying to not exist. Then you're for not existence. And the caveat is like, no, it's this Nirvana thing. It's like, it's awesome, but you can't define it. It's neither an existence nor existence. That sounds like bullshit. That sounds like somebody who is not interested in answering your question. That's what I think.
So that again, it goes back to the history of Buddhism, right? Is this what Buddha actually wanted, or is this something that somehow came to a thing after his death, right? Like, is this what he kind of saying? Hey,
Right.
guys, this is the play. I mean, he had a whole bunch of followers. They could be changing his words, or who knows, right? Like, these are things being passed down. We don't know what he really thought, what he really was.
Yeah, this is my other problem with that whole thing, that there's so many texts from so many different cultures, from so many different traditions that are already splintered and separated from so many cults that, and interpreting them is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And some of them are written in such a complex, archaic language that you're just even trying to figure out what they actually mean is a problem. So when you read like contemporary people who did spend decades studying them and interpreting them, you still read then their interpretation, which is just another human being saying like, yeah, you need to do it like this.
That's the problem. We don't have.
It's a paradox.
Yeah, whether it's scientific or otherwise, any of these things that we experience or trying to explain are always subject to this kind of, would you call this like a fog of war or whatever? Like it's just this kind of like, you can't go past beyond it, right? It's like a wall. You just can't see it. You can't pass it. It's like that in games, right? In video games, like that invisible wall.
Yeah, you don't know what's out there.
You just hit that wall. Logically, there's nothing can explain, right? Like no amount of logic or rationales can explain further than what we already tried to explain with anything kind of credible as theories and what have you, right? So yeah, I mean, what it boiled down to is, again, we come back to this sort of practical usage as opposed to a pure. It is still a belief system, but it's kind of like almost like you use meditation as a useful tool to make your life better, as opposed to be like, okay, you do this because you want to.
Well, see, at this point, I'm not even sure. So I'm at this point so paranoid that I'm thinking the whole project might be like,
Might be a problem.
might be designed to guide you there, because yeah, the practices are transformative, but you just don't know what they're transforming you to. But it seems like the whole project is designed to dissolve your ego. It's because it is akin to that meaningless work that is supposed to just kind of break your spirit, really. But this is where I don't know what anything means anymore. Because is the spirit the ego? Like, are you the spirit? Are you the ego? Are you the God? Like, what is going on? Who is who? But one thing is that I realized for myself is that if this practice or whatever it is bringing you suffering,
Mm,
that can't be the way.
right.
Because why would you want suffering? And it started bringing me suffering.
Uh-huh.
So, and I tried it a bunch of times after that. And every time I do it, it does the same thing. So I'm like, well, then I can't do it. It's definitely not the way
Okay,
for
so
me.
it is true. I think a lot of people do report that. Like maybe not exactly in this way, but like I remember reading some guy was meditating, and then he literally started having seizures whenever he tried to meditate. Like he literally just physically cannot do it anymore because it's somehow some ways that it changed him in that sense. So yeah, who knows what this process is doing to the
Yeah.
human mind, right? Like what's the, for some people then that becomes an impossible task almost. Then you can't really do that. So that just to say that, well, did they really figured it out, right? What if there's some kinks in this process that they haven't figured out, right? Because it's all just people who claim that they have achieved it or they're on the way to be, that's just their self-reporting. Nobody this is hasn't done like, oh well, side effect includes, did
Yeah.
anybody did that? No, there's no study, right? There's no
Yeah. This is all a bunch of kind of self experimentation. It produces different results for different people. Some people are able to learn it pretty quickly. Some people don't get it at all. Like it never clicks for them. For me, like I tried it for years and it literally was like a big process, dude, from like not doing it at all to like trying to figure out like just following instructions like, okay, is this it, is this it, is this it, for years, to only then like, okay, I kind of see like how I can drop into this more or less equanimous state of mind. Okay, that's fine, that's interesting. But then where it leads and what it does to you overall with you're developing this ability, yeah, you don't know, because it kind of seems like you're developing an ability to control your mind more, but then still again becomes like, what is your mind and what is controlling what? You know,
because
it always
I
gets
keep
very tricky.
yeah, I keep going back to as far as human understanding of the evolutionary process. Like, way if you just see the process itself, it's like a fascinating like thing where things change and develop and kind of like we are the next level in terms of the meta, right? Where we are
From what
having
we know, yeah.
from what we know, right? From animals, from plants, from other existence, like for millions of years, if this is what's going on, that like, from the fossil record and all that, it seems like this is what went on. So this process of finding out what's the better way to kind of make life work. So it's almost like a grand experiment. Like this is like a whole sets of things being set in this manner, and then we'll see what happens when things kind of, it's like kids playing, I don't know,
Like a
playing in the
sandbox.
sandbox. Like, hey, what if this, hit this and that? Like, but like, in terms of like a natural process, just like, how geology is just the changes in the way of the temperature, wind, pressure, all that, right? Water, erosion. It just naturally happens, right?
Yeah.
The wind blows this way, the
Just
water goes.
natural
So
patterns and
there's a
interactions of
pattern
different
to that,
elements.
right? So I guess if you go with the biogenesis theory, then it's like, okay, well, these organic molecules start forming complex structures, and then that becomes us. That becomes organisms, and then you have different species. There are past animals who went extinct. They're unable to compete in their environment, and this. So again, we see the pattern of this kind of grand experiment, right? Some win, some lose, and then
Mhm.
eventually you come to this sort of, maybe we are the next one where somehow we win the lottery, we win the race somehow, right? We're able to start manipulate our surroundings. We have this cognition, and I mean, I get it why some people would believe God, would believe that there is a being that created all this and stuff like that, right? But I don't know. Maybe the process is less like the Bible, but more like, okay, God is just the structure of the universe, and somehow we are just this kind of manifestation of changes until it comes to this, you know,
Yeah,
this is the form. This is the form that
yeah.
came to be somehow because we
We're
continue
like
to
the fruit of the earth in a sense,
right.
right?
So
We've
because
been grown here, but then now we are kind of like fruiting as humans.
right because see we inherit everything that came from before, from our parents and their parents, and you know, so who we are already defined by what happened before. So
Hmm.
meaning that are you really gonna have a totally different access to life when you are set in this way, right? We a lot of the things about you, about all of us, are already decided, already determined, right? So, and yes, we all have this cognition, the processes of our brain, and but what's the extent of? I mean, every generation is developing, is using that brain, and are we getting smarter? Maybe, right?
Hmm.
But what's the ultimate goal? I mean, every generation we start making technology now. We're getting more and more things to augment ourselves, right? But then eventually we're gonna start changing us in such ways that we don't even recognize anymore, right? So is that the impulse? Is that the process of? Because you can't say that we wanted this, right? Nobody planned this, right? Is there some kind of underlying desire that made us kind of continue to do this? I mean, obviously, okay, technology can make things easier. I get that, but
You know what kind of makes me think about? It's the civilization games again, because
uh,
every game that you start it just has enough of parameters to really randomize a bunch of
right,
stuff
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
every game
randomization,
is
yeah,
like unique essentially, because you can have so many different parameters that the variations of the game are truly infinite, right? It's much more than in chess. So it's kind of like reminds me of that, because there are still certain rules in the game which you can't really, you can't navigate them any other way, but the starting scenarios are different. But if you run through the whole game, it's essentially like a simulation. These are the starting parameters, these are the rules. So there is some variation of where somebody can end up in, but at the end of the game, there's going to be a certain winner because they've accrued, enough of a certain thing to dominate everything else. So life kind of seems that way as well. That yeah, there's just a certain parameters, there's a certain algorithm that's at play, some kind of this aliveness that's trying to figure things out, right? It's trying to figure out both how to survive and how to live and how to grow and how to propagate itself. And it keeps growing. And we've grown as species as the biggest thing on the planet. And yeah,
yeah.
who knows where it goes from here?
It's the
Because there's a certain process at play already.
we are carrying that out because see everybody, if you ask a person, right, if they can achieve the best result for in their life, most people will say they want to leave a legacy, right? Something they're remembered for, or they are known for. That's both a self-preservation type of thing because you logically figured out, okay, I can't live forever, so something gotta live forever in my place, right? Because we just desire permanence, but obviously, you know, you can't achieve that. But that's most people what most people will say. It's not really, "Oh, I want lots of money," or whatever. And most people will say that legacy, something about them that they want to leave for other people to remember, right?
Right. Leave their mark.
Right. And then also the human process is like, yeah, people will say, "Oh, I want to I want to work on a project that kind of lasts longer than me," right? So, but that's the process of how we build civilizations or how we build these things.
Yeah, there's
Because
continuity of
individual
sorts.
have limited lives. So we need to be building this thing continuously together because that's the only thing we can recognize that okay, that will last down the line. Because if nothing is being built, well, the earth will be the same as it was, you know, millions of years ago. And there wouldn't be anything for you to recognize, oh, did anybody did anything? You wouldn't know. That's why ancient people build monuments. They build all these kind of outrageous but amazing kind of
Yeah, so
structures.
it withstands
It
that
will
we've been
stand.
here.
That's their
This is what
desire.
we've
It's
done.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I realize that I don't have forever, so I'm gonna use my time to build something cool, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's like
like,
a little signature that you live after yourself. This is the kind of people that lived here
right,
and been able to do this stuff.
you see this like on Easter Island or the Stonehenge and all this type of different things. Like, right, that's what people do, right? Think about it. Why would empire exist? The guy who is the emperor they want to reign forever, right? The idea
Right.
that I did this, why would you chase this ladder of power is because you want to dictate things. You want to say,
Hmm.
this is going to be what's happening. And I said that, right? Or I directed that
Yeah.
way, right? So anything we do in life is just about leaving that mark, right? Imagine, right? I'm sure for Donald Trump, for one of the things that he really desired was like, yeah, I was president. Okay, somebody gonna write about me, whether good or bad, they're gonna write about me. For him, that's the whole point, right?
Well, he got to the end game and he was like, what else is
What
there?
else is there, right?
Yeah.
That was it, right? He's essentially trying to figure out what else he's gonna do about it. Anything else that he can do, right? So it's that process, right? Everybody will have that where they're like, okay, I don't want my life to be quote unquote wasted and not creating something that kind of will be here sort of after you will no longer be here. For some people is children, right? They want their genetic line to continue. Other people is more. Other people is like, I don't know, it's a book that they want to write. Is a movie they want to make. It's I don't know, whatever else that kind of makes it for them. Because for people, the worst thing is to have essentially to kind of recognize for themselves that they haven't done anything, right? Not to say they haven't done anything, but like for themselves to recognize like they feel like they didn't do enough in the life that they had, right? So this is the fundamental reality that we all deal with, right? And we find different ways to kind of satisfy the question for ourselves.
Yeah. Because there's people like you who are just want to go with the flow and just like fine with living. And arguably, that's what Taoists say, that that's the better way to live. Because all those people who wanted to leave legacy after themselves, well, look how many warmongers and conquerors wanted to leave a legacy, and they've brought in so much suffering and damage to the world. Was that a good thing? Was that a bad thing?
But they they know that people are going to talk about them, right? This is why they still
But that's kind of the ultimate selfishness, isn't it?
right, but that's fucked up, but this is kind of what is. I mean, shit. I mean, I don't know, like just as a thing that happens, right? We know this phenomenon of talking about Hitler, and that's it. He fucking made himself into the human consciousness, right? I mean, in any recent consciousness, everybody's going to remember this guy. But I don't know, did he realize that he has this much influence? I mean, he definitely during when he was alive, he was trying to build an empire, right? As far as that, he was trying to do that. But you know, typical humans, right? It's just always want more. I want to be the one to say this
That's what
and
I'm
that.
saying. Like, there's gotta be, at the very least, I mean, there still should be the spiritual values should be there in that sense. But it all comes back to where do you stop? Like, where do you stop? Because yes, you can have benevolent intentions and ideas and motivations, etc. But the stopping, it's nobody can do the stopping.
Yeah.
If only he stopped at Poland, you know what I mean? Maybe then it would have been fine.
No, it's if it was no, like the nature of it is that he's not gonna stop. It's just
Well,
not
that's the
gonna ever
thing.
be enough.
Always that appetite seems to be unquenchable.
So I mean, think about how different people think about their life. Imagine Vladimir Putin himself. He built his life in that way, and somehow that's important to him, right? But to somebody like me, it's like, so what? What's so important about you? What's so important? Okay, yeah, you can direct people around, you can make things happen. Okay, great. And then
That's kind of an example of how a person gets so entrenched into the role they're playing that they get carried away.
yeah,
You think that you're on top of the world. Imagine you can't imagine, okay?
I
But
can't imagine.
imagine being in charge of the largest country in the
Yeah,
world.
can't imagine,
You
man.
know what it's like? You don't know what is
Right.
even involved.
But
Forget
somehow,
about motivations and intentions.
that's desirable for that guy. If I were to think about it, it's like, nah, I don't want that.
Yeah, you wouldn't even
That's too
want it.
much shit to do. I don't want to do that. Right? But somehow, see, this is how different people are. For some psyches, for some individuals,
They will actually want
they
this
want that. That
stuff. Yeah.
somehow is desirable. So you almost like the life is crazy, right? Because all kinds of people exist. So
Yeah,
all kind of
I guess
reasons.
it's almost like there's also some kind of challenge to it as well. You know, it's the ambition is like, well, can I handle it? Can I get on top of this mountain and stay the king of the mountain? And then you can't. Like even if you get to the top of the mountain, the whole nature of the game is that it comes a new king and then kills the previous king.
Yeah.
That's how it works usually.
Or you just die naturally and this is over. It's over.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Right. If you're lucky.
Most of the time,
you
another
see,
king
this is
comes.
why, as a side note, this is why I'm concerned for Russia, because once he dies, let's
Yeah,
just
it's going
say,
to be another
let's just say naturally, right?
possibility of a vacuum in
Because
power.
he's how old is he now, right? You can't be there. You're not the emperor of man. Even the emperor of man died, right? He
Hey,
has
you
to be
don't know
maintained.
Russia's secret tech is going to be
It's going to 40K, man. It's just, yeah. We're living in the real reality where it ends up being 40K. Yeah, exactly. This is what happens. So all the lore that you read is fake, okay? Fake news. This is the real one. Like we're veering towards some, But that's the thing, right? It's like apparently he wanted it. That's it. Okay. For that person, that's what I mean, there are a lot of people playing the same game, right? But somehow the environment pushes certain individuals to do that. Both the sense of power, the sense of control, the sense of money, the sense of whatever. Apparently, for some people, they play that game. I mean, I can understand the drive. I can understand the impetus why
It's
somebody would do
almost
that.
like you're like this is why I think like people are in their place essentially because imagine like royal families like before even where if you are born
Right.
as a son of a king,
That's it. That's your life.
that's it.
That's
You
your
have
life.
a fate.
Yeah.
You have a certain
Nothing
fate
you
that
can do.
everything and everybody locks you into. You would have to be like Buddha and run away from the castle, which is like singular example. This is why the story got so famous because it's akin to Jesus in terms of
Right.
unprecedented. Like what? No, you don't.
Right.
You won. You already have the best life. So be a prince. No. So I think to that degree is also like what the Buddha stories got famous is that such an ultimate example of using your volition to like, hey, you know what? I do have free will and I'm going to choose to do this and this and this. And to an extent, everybody has that in terms of, but imagine how much bravery you need to have and how much resistance you would have to overcome to go against whole societies in certain ways. Because in certain cultures, like you can't, especially what's happened like to women, historically, like they had no choices or rights overall at all, like compared to like you were born into this, you sold to this guy as a wife, and then that's how it goes. So yeah, so these days, if anything, this is the most free that you could ever be these days. Technically,
again, freedom depends on what you compare
there's
it
much more
with.
freedom, yeah, relatively
Relatively
to
compared
else.
to the past, yeah, I think in a lot of ways this is better, as in a lot of society try to progress, right? And I think a lot of ways this is definitely better for a lot of people, because back in the past, certain people have the privilege, right? A lot of people don't have it. Now we have more or less equal opportunities, right? More or less, right? Definitely more than in the past. So we are developing, we are kind of improving in that sense, right? But obviously that creates a lot of changes as well. And that just means it's neither good nor bad. Sometimes bad, yeah, sometimes it's good. But these changes going to happen no matter what. So I think we are definitely, I mean, you just have to realize like we are living in constant change. There is the impermanence, right? If we cite kind of Buddhist thoughts, it's like impermanence is everything, right? It's
definitely there.
Everything changes. So you can't really think that you're gonna be any different, right? This is what a lot of people think that, right? It's like everyone thinks they're different until they get hit with the same sort of result, you know? This is kind of
Same reality that we're facing.
yeah, and they think they can change it. They are different, right? I mean, that's what everybody this kind of the biases sometimes we
Yeah,
have.
that's the inherent arrogance I think that's present in humans. It's definitely there.
But but my problem again is in the same way that you talk about how you kind of reject the idea of giving up your ego. I also see that well, yeah, there's a reason why we have ego, right? There's a reason functionally at least, like it's just a reason why we wake up in the morning and do anything at all. Because if you don't have an ego, you don't even know what's dangerous, what's not, it's one of the first thing that
I would say ego is like it's a consistency, right?
right.
It's a certain
Yeah. Yeah.
consistency. And yes, that changes, and yet whatever you can call yourself, it does change as well. But there's still consistency over there.
Which is memory, right?
Memory and your whole personality and all these interacting elements, right? Like I still don't get the part where people say like, oh, that there's no self because you can't find it. Well, we have names and terms for complex things that are comprised of a multitude of other things. So, and then there is such a thing as an emergent property, because some people say that consciousness is an emergent property of a complex system. Okay, your ego could be an emergent property of a complex psychological, interaction of the nervous system and all the multiple layers in your brain, which is so complex that nobody knows how it works. Still, the point is that it is something consistent that you can track through your whole life. People know who you are. If you suddenly showed up as a different person tomorrow, they would know, they would notice, which means there is some kind of you changing. Yes, changing, great, because everything changes. You plant a flower, it changes every second. Everything changes, that's fine. But it doesn't mean things don't exist. That's the part that I don't get. Like, yeah, maybe they don't exist in some ultimate transcendental sense, but we're not there yet. We don't live in that reality. We live in this relative, subjective, shared reality where whatever you call these things, they definitely are there because we're interacting them with that way. Because I'm talking to you, you're my friend, you're a specific person. You're not a new person every time I'm talking to you, right? So that means you're you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the part where, the live experience has to be accounted for as well, not just because you can somehow just focus on the physical quantification, right? Quantifying physically whatever exists or not. Live experience is very important, right? That is a layer of existence that we oftentimes don't account for, right? We just get too hang up on the either very too scientific, too material, or too esoteric and too kind of like in the ether,
Yeah,
right? But
I
what about
think that's the
the
extremes.
actual living experience? This is why I'm
Yeah,
saying
the present moment.
you gotta curate your experience, right? It's like design the life that you want to kind of experience.
Yeah, I really like that because that kind of that's the sure way. Because even if there was like some kind of God living through you, they would want you to create the experience.
Right. You know what?
Because they're experiencing what you're experiencing.
I don't know why, but what comes to mind is kind of funny. I want to experience it as what John Malkovich would do. Because I feel like he's the quintessential
He's got
somehow about him. He's like everything is
got the
curated. Like I
sense of
got
aesthetics.
all the stuff. Like he's experienced. The guy knows French. He's living in a chateau. He's enjoying himself.
He is a gourmand.
Yeah, that's the kind of life that I mean. If you can achieve it, then
Finer
that will be the
things,
the fine.
You want to know the finer
I
things?
don't know if that's just the character that he plays that kind of get that across to me, but somehow I feel like it's true. Like
No,
John Malkovich,
that's the image
that's how he carried his life, right? It's like, yeah, that's
an inspiration.
right. Just gotta curate everything, It's like
No, but that's fairly like general. That's every woman in the world is that they definitely
they definitely
want to curate
everything,
their experience and your experience.
Yeah.
Okay, they want to curate everybody.
Oh, exactly, right? So that means, women knows how to live better than men do. I think a lot of
I think
times
they're like
we
more
just
in touch with
yeah
reality.
I don't know. We just sometimes we're too much of a knucklehead sometimes. Right? It's like too much of a too obtuse or too
Yeah, maybe we're too
insensitive.
specialized or
Too
something.
insensitive to like what's good, right? It's like, oh, whatever. We're too easily just going whatever.
Or, like we're so goal oriented that we're just maybe
Right.
miss the bigger picture, and we're just like, all right, this is the goal, and just you keep going towards that until it's achieved, which is what requires to achieve certain ambitious goals. You do have
Yeah.
to have some
Focus.
single mind and focus. And then I guess that's how we split the responsibilities for navigating reality, right? Because, I mean, not, absolutely, of course, but in general, kind of, I would say that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, see, again, if you go, this is part of this discussion, if you go back to kind of fundamentally what we are, is that we are dictated by our everything about us, right? From the biochemicals to the
Yeah.
way we're raised to the way, there's a reason things are the way they are, right? They happen in a way because it naturally seems to be that this is the result. And we're trying to study all of this, right? Whether that's psychology, physiology, anything, right? Any scientific study is trying to ascertain, okay, what's the reality of what's going on, right? What is going on? What is the process by which that happens? So in the same sense, spirituality is doing the same thing, but for the mind, right? What's the process, right? Trying to understand how it works or also where you should be going, right? Because I think that's what all spirituality is trying to say. Is like, okay, what is the optimal or the way that you should be conducting yourself, right?
What should you do around here?
Yeah, what you do around here. But yeah, so if people have different experiences, such as yourself in this case, you figured out that okay, maybe this is not for me. This whole meditation thing is
Which
screwing me
is
up.
just so funny if you think about it, because this what makes me think that this is all like one big theater play or something. Because like to ride this guy who's through years arrived at this like, oh, I need to meditate, and then spend like 6 years trying to meditate and learn meditation, learning all these theories and principles and disciplines, only to find out that that's not what he wants at all.
But isn't that
That's
life
pretty
though?
comedic.
I mean,
It's pretty comedic.
yeah, that's life is a big joke, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, isn't it ironic?
But it also kind of makes sense because you don't know what you want. You're like, okay, well, what is this? What is this? Right? You just stumble upon things and you investigate them. And then you just, okay, I tried that. I tried it, earnestly tried it. Okay.
That's the process.
And then you just, okay, not for me. That's valid, right? That's
It is
what
valid,
happens in life.
which is what they recommend young people to do. Just try and fail multiple things until you find out, okay, what were you actually interested in? Because you can't just pick and choose and like, oh, okay, I'm gonna spend all this money getting student loans to go to this school to learn about something which maybe you found out like, oh, actually, you don't actually like doing this.
Yeah, there needs to be like a really specific reason at least that you know what you're doing it for. Because even if you don't know exactly what it is, like you maybe you're making a mistake, right? That's the process of disillusionment is kind of how you learn. But that you do need to pick that next point. Like, okay, I think it's this because that's the best you can do. It
Yeah.
is always, I think it's this. And then you find out whether it is or not.
We're just look, it's like we're just all living life foolishly. We're all doing that. Like we're just like fool at all times. Like we're just gonna be foolish, finding out, "Oh, this is what happens. Okay, that's funny. Right? That's just what life is, right? All of the things are just the
Well, this is why
mistakes.
it's like, would be really awesome if everybody had just some perfect form of education, like in the Star Trek, the Vulcans, and like when I saw how
Right.
they like the perfect learning system, and everybody is taught all the best things right away. That's ideally what you would want your society to be, right? Because imagine if everybody was a scientist, dude. Imagine living in that society and everybody knew ethics and philosophy and logic and cognitive bias and critical thinking skills, and that was built, that's your baseline that you built in at the earliest age, and you at the whole rest of your life you build upon that. I want to live there. I want to live in that society.
Although I wonder what makes it. See, that's the thing, right? In my when I was young, like basically, I failed the system because apparently I wasn't smart enough. What about these people, right? Who can somehow.
Just like Spartans, just discarded.
Yeah, that's what happens, right? That's how the Vulcans got all smart people, right?
I
They got
guess,
rid
yeah,
of
I
all the
guess there's a little bit of
dumbass.
that going on. A little bit of eugenics here and there. That's, what are you going to do?
See, that's the thing about real human life is like it's so
Yeah,
complex,
it's
right? You have
not
different
as
levels,
black and white. Yeah.
so many different levels. How do you fit everybody in this system? It's like this is why this system failed all the people, right? They going through this education system and it failed them because they're not interested in that specific thing in which you have to excel to pass the system. And I see this because look, I used to live in China, man. Like the amount of pressure they put on students to perform,
Mm,
to pass the test, it's
yeah.
so hard. Like this is almost inhumane, right? To the level
Yeah.
where
Not everybody can do it, of course.
right, but that's because the pressure is there. Because if you don't pass this, then you are nobody. Then
Yeah, that's the level of
you
competition.
can't compete, and then therefore you can't have a good job. And then, well, what are you gonna do? But now people find that well, it doesn't matter. Even if you have an education, you don't have jobs. That's how bad the economy can get, and therefore it's like, well, it's
That actually, yeah, that could be the next cycle for me because, like, think of all these effects taking place because there could then be such a phenomenon now that there could be a generation of people who do give up on education like that. Who is like, well, there's no point in educating ourselves. And there could be a generation of people who do not have education and they're not able to
it's a
sustain the
negative
complex
cycle.
civilization that is being
Yeah.
built around them. So civilization will crumble.
And then
And so
we
the cycle
devolve into
continues.
idiocracy.
Yeah, yeah. And then the cycle continues, right? Like build the Tower of Babel and it crumbles. Build it up and it crumbles.
Welcome to Costco. We love you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is happening right now, and it's sad for men too, because apparently the data suggests that men are not going to school as much as women right now, and that's a bad thing, dude. That's just bad, right? This is not, like you need people to have these to be educated, to know enough about things, and work with things and work with knowledge to continue on with the system. At least if it doesn't matter like it or not, the current system that we have in the economy,
This
need it.
is where like some countries in Europe, don't they have free higher education?
Yeah, I think they do.
That's what we need.
That's what we need. You got to give people a way to try things out and then exactly know what they want to do and then go further, continue study and stuff like that.
Yeah, because currently the barrier to higher education is very expensive.
It's too expensive.
It bars a lot of people from it,
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, you got to make people, I don't know, sometimes you do have to have the ability to make mistakes such as choosing the wrong stuff to study, because that's what
I'm
happens.
not taking on student debt.
No,
I'm
absolutely.
not doing that. That sounds
No.
dumb.
Bro,
I don't want to do that.
Bro, I've done some dumb shit, okay? Like, I actually went to art school. I actually had a student loan. I'm like, okay, not expensive, okay? That's the good thing. But I
Oh, yeah, I
actually,
remember you were paying it off.
yeah, I paid it off. It's not much, but still, I actually
It was
borrowed
it's a
money,
process, yeah.
got an education in art, and then it just is basically useless for me.
Yeah,
right?
it didn't pay off.
That's my experience. But that's the thing is sometimes it do be like that. You do have to go through it to realize, oh, actually, maybe this is not what I want to do. But the thing is, there's always going to be silver lining. I mean, I'm able to talk with you and go deep is because I had at least somewhat of an
Some
education.
exposure to.
Otherwise, I would not be able to even know all this stuff, right? Because you do learn a lot of almost random useless stuff in art school.
That's what I think as well, is that every experience is still valuable because if you can reframe it like this, if you can keep in mind that, hey, think about your experiences in the context of your overall life. The more experiences you have, the more wise you are.
Yeah.
Because the more bullshit you've seen.
Exactly. That's how you learn.
Yes.
That's how you learn. Because how many times we just think we're the shit and then we did something and then it was stupid, right? And then you found out, okay, yeah, that was dumb. Not to do that again. But that's the process. Because otherwise, look, somebody can tell you not to do something and your ego is gonna be like, no, I want it. Why are you telling me not to do it? If you tell me not to do it, I'm gonna do it. That's
Right.
kind of what humans do,
Yeah, there's definitely like with age, a lot of that gets curbed because I definitely remember the attitude just you
Yeah,
have in life, whereas just some kind of, yeah, definitely
his
young
ego.
person's,
It's like
yeah,
it's his arrogance or
it's
ego or
arrogance. It's
hubris,
like, oh, I'm untouchable, I
I
can be on
know
top
what
of
I'm
the
about,
world.
you know?
Yeah.
I know who I am.
But then like it's based literally on nothing. It's just there's nothing behind it. It's just false sense of confidence. It's only you're able to say this because you're inexperienced, because you haven't been enough
Yeah.
around enough where you can say like, oh right, there's these and these factors, these and these and these dangers, and my body is like this, and I can, it's computing all these parameters. And yeah, as a young person, you're naive. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what's out there essentially. You think the world is like this, and it's like it's infinite.
Bro, I can't even fathom how I thought back in the day, you
But
know?
yeah,
Like, now
yeah,
thinking back, it's like, dude, that's that's dumb. That's like it's literally it's idiotic. But then somehow you did that. You
yeah,
thought those thoughts. You thought that were
yeah,
the correct way, and you think that you know what's best for you. But then the reality taught you that no, you know that's not
yeah.
how
That's just
how
how
it
it
works.
goes, and it's a good sign because that means you grow. You're able to look at your past self, and it's like, yep, that was a different person essentially, right? I am now. You're built on top of that person.
Imagine if you play a video game, right? You'll be failing so many times until you get it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's the experience. So you can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna play this game the first time. I'm gonna go through the entire thing without one death. Like, no, that's impossible. There's no
yeah.
way.
Because you're gonna find out it's like, oh, this happens. No, yeah, no way. This is yeah. This is why like.
Or I try to play some of those arcade games. It's
Uh,
hard. This is what they
but
say.
yeah,
Those old games actually teach you how to be good. Modern games, they say, is brain dead because it's like autosave. There's like direction telling you where to go. But in the old games, like you just don't know anything. It's like, oh, I got
you
to
have to
figure it
figure it
out.
out yourself. Yeah.
And those games, some of those arcade games, even they're hard. The combination that you got to do in the
Right.
right way to avoid
You
being
have to
hit.
proper develop a skill
Yeah,
to beat them.
and that's the fun of it, right? You just again and again, you try it again and again until you get
That's
good,
true. That
you
just
know?
made me think that kind of that's the cool part about games is that the pleasure is essentially in developing a skill, in the ability that you now have. Like, look
Yeah.
how I effortlessly can, do this, this, and this, and this. And you definitely can't do it like there's a growing arc for sure. So, oh yeah, also a
So
big
that's
part of
the
reality.
so that's the heuristic. The heuristic that we have as human beings, structured, I just say, to receive all these information and process it and adapt it and learn it. This is what AI, what they're trying to make AI do is mimic the human way of learning. Like we learn, we adapt to our,
Yeah,
is that way of
to build
logic
out the actual
thinking
intelligence.
that
Yeah,
build up the kind of structure and processes by which that is to ensure that can happen, right? Because the computer right now, they're just kind of dumb. They process these data, and the AI is kind of using this kind of large language model to kind of mimic how human would interpret, in this case, text and kind of formulate, the information. So that's the process of what we're trying to do is again mimicking the human behavior, but that's how we learn, right? We need to go through all this for it to change to register. So imagine it's like a record book. You're able to make changes and record everything of the change that happened in real life. And that is substantial change because you change your behavior.
right.
Imagine you totally change after an event, after something happened, and you register the difference. That's
Yes,
amazing.
you
That's
do.
that's intelligence. That's a way of
Yeah, you have a whole system like with the memory and emotions. You write it in. You have markers, dudes. These days, like seriously, I'm amazed at my memory. Like, it's pretty good because I'm able to recall whole scenes and and feels of them like from many many years ago, which are there. They're just stored there, and I did not do nothing. I just was present, and then something happened somehow that I memorized them. But there's so many of them that just like I sometimes remember this thing where I went there, I talked to this person from many moons ago, and I was like, wow, how does it all work? It's amazing.
yeah. Because part of the thing I keep reminding myself is that we talk about essentially we talk about how to live, essentially, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of the topic that we touch on this time. And part of the thing that I reminded myself of is that I basically tell myself one of my, you can call, rules is I want no problem. Okay. So whatever I do, I want to limit the amount of problems that I had to
Yeah.
deal with.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
naturally I'm chill. Okay.
The
I don't,
credo of the lazy guy.
yeah, exactly. Because that makes my life so much better.
I'm same way. Like
Right?
everything I do, all my like efficiency obsession and optimization obsession is because I know it reduces, nullifies, minimizes the amount of problems
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah.
Because the trick part is not to eliminate the problem tomorrow or today, overall, which essentially comes to how much effort you want to put in to having a good, comfortable life. And you do want to minimize that effort, technically, right?
You know,
Unless you do something pleasurable that you do want to
you know,
extend.
again, like we say, right? Everything there's a reason for it, and like we are a result of evolution. You know what happened? Why I had this thought? Because I currently am a mover, and as a mover, the fundamental premise is
Yeah,
like
you
you
want to
want
do
to
it
do
efficiently.
less work. Okay, like this is a lot of work physically, so you want to do anything in your power to make it so that you
I
don't
kind of
spend
think
so
that's
much.
everybody. Everybody's approach to work is the same. Like, kind of. Maybe there are different strategy to it, but if there was a way to, no, I don't think that's true because I've seen how people work. Different people, again, different personalities. They do.
Okay,
Some people don't care about anything. They just do whatever.
you know, that's only that's part of the reason because yeah, and I know that you work in an office, and you know, in an office, it's not about efficiency; it's about deferring responsibility as much as possible. That's the
Yeah,
system, right?
yeah, it's a whole different game there.
If an email can solve the problem for you, then you will not do anything else. You just send that email to somebody else, wait for their response in 3 days, and then you defer
But
all of that responsibility.
the thing is that there are other people who don't care about that efficiency, who just want to waste everybody else's time or
Right.
play some kind of domination games, politics or whatever, who will make other people like go out of the way and make other people like, attend the meeting just so everybody can like satisfy their need for a meet because they have some other motives.
Yeah.
That's why the meme exists. Like this meeting should have been an email
Yeah.
because they happen all the time. But why does it happen? Who wants to have all these meetings? All the extroverts? Is this the war against the extroverts versus introverts? Because it's true. There's so many things that you could write in an email. There's two points, this and this, done, communicated, and
You know,
yeah.
when you work outside of the office environment, you find real quick that everything is about efficiency because that's how the world works. Because the environment, the
In the
office,
real world.
yeah, in the real world, right? The office environment breeds inefficiency because it's just the system is set up in that way, right? It's like a
Yeah.
whole bunch of guys have money, they build this building, they use this office to do what, right? It's never about efficiency. It's all about maintain the company, I don't know, image or whatever else, right?
It's like, that movie Office Space.
Oh yeah,
It's so iconic. It's like 26 years old or something at this point,
classic,
but
right?
it keeps
Classic.
being iconic.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
irrelevant because it's true. What the guy goes through and says there, like most people do barely any amount of work in a given day, like
No,
real work that needs to
yeah,
be done. It's crazy. I know this because these days, when I've been able to structure my own day, I'm able to pack it with stuff that I'm doing. Like I have all kinds of deliverables every single day, which I mean, it's all optional because I structure my workflow. But I know how much you can do in a single day because I've worked for companies that were really intense, and I worked for companies which you barely needed to be present online for anything.
yeah,
So it's very interesting that that this work. I'm definitely I'm pro people defining kind of what they have to work on and how they work.
right.
That's like the best kind
Yeah,
because especially like when you're passionate about something and you are in control of what you do and how you're doing, given you have enough tools and stuff, I guess the best. Essentially, you set up your system. It's also effortless. You just like browse through the whole thing, and at the end, you have so much stuff done.
yeah.
So there's something about that flexibility of, because each person has their own intelligence, right? Their own idiosyncrasies that only they will know how to accommodate. That's why the system somehow needs to be based on no system. Essentially, it's kind of it's a paradox. Like eventually, I think what we'll have to come to once we're through this modern crisis of just chaos and corporate greed and politics, we're gonna have to come to some kind of conclusion, essentially, that okay, don't do this. This was dumb. But this, this kind of combination of some kind of that accounts for individuality and balances out freedoms with essentially a person's ability to deliver should be guiding what they're doing, because everything else creates stress and suffering for the person. And I think that's what we'll have to accommodate for, not maximizing profits, whatever else.
Right. Because I think part of the problem is that all of the underlying principles in the real world is always this arbitrage process. People are trying to find the difference, right? That's how they make money. So the problem that comes into it is that in the grander scale of it, it's always about who has access to information that other people don't. That's been playing out in society in other ways. So part of that is almost like is pitching people as its opponents. You're like, oh, I need to know more about the process than the other guy, therefore getting an advantage. There are processes being played like that. So I don't know. I feel like if you work at a job, it's always you're plugging into a system, right? A system that exists in a specific
Yeah.
industry, specific thing, and you were working under that premise. And I don't know, maybe the higher you go, the more you're encountering the thing that, like I said, the arbitrage. Like it's like a battle, right? Who knows more? Who can get more? Who can? And that's what all the company are competing against, right? Competing with against each other for this, for a dominance, for an edge, for a thing, right? Because once they amass enough resources, yeah, that's what they trying to do. In a way, I guess that is kind of good because it creates the boundaries for a lot of these companies so that they have to perform because otherwise the other guy is gonna do it before you do. But as for the individual person, I don't know, right? It's very hard to find that balance. Like where do you fit? Like the problem nowadays, especially with office job, is like more or less that they don't care about you. That's the problem. If a company actually care about their employees and
With
want them to,
different type of work
yeah,
environment
because
communication.
you naturally would just want to work, right? You want to do your best
Yeah. Like
to
something like this you would experience in some small town local business,
right.
because there you literally are a family, or friends, because you live like next to each other,
Yeah.
essentially. I've experienced a little bit of that in my hometown because I guess it was a cultural difference too, but wherever my dad worked and my mom worked, those people were friends. They literally become your friends. Like you spend time outside of work together because that's how small of a town it is. Because you can't like afford not to do that. But also, I guess the culture does predispose you to that. So nothing like that happens here. Like
Yeah.
haven't developed really good relationships with my coworkers. Not that much. Maybe a couple of people, and maybe that's my personal problem as well. But not really, not to that extent. Because modern work doesn't even
Yeah.
predispose you to that. There's not an environment or culture for that.
Also, maybe because it's small town, right? A lot of
Yeah.
times that's what happens. At big cities, just doesn't matter where. Big cities is always more chaotic, more
Yeah, there's
strange.
definitely something to that. Like the small town energy is much more friendly. It's interesting how that works.
I think it's
It's almost
definitely.
like overpopulation is a thing,
Oh, right.
overconcentration of people.
Yeah, like was it Dunning Kruger? No, no, what's that effect? You only know like 130 people,
Yeah,
in
150.
your or 150, right? So more than that, you stop caring, right? So I think naturally we're just good at living at that level, like a small town, you know. And any association bigger than that is just becomes a lot more negative aspect. This is why you have more crime, right? Because strangers, who cares if you get
Yeah, who
robbed,
cares?
right? So they rob you because they don't care about you. They're not your, So yeah, that's the problem you deal with, right? All the time, and that can be pretty bad. But what else can you do, right? All the jobs, all the stuff are here, right? In the bigger cities.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
that's always a paradox.
Yeah,
Always
but see,
stuff you have to
but
choose,
but the thing is,
trade.
that's why I don't really aim for that perfect setup or whatever. It's just it's what it is, right? You kind of have to, like I said, no problem. Okay, I don't want any problem. I know it's imperfect, it's not great, but hey, you just gotta make do and reduce your personal sufferings. That's you know, and don't call
Yeah, I
suffering,
think
right?
that's a good pride in yeah,
Yeah, because that's how I see. All I see is this gonna be a problem for me?
yeah. Don't be making problems and don't be having problems.
Yeah,
I think that's a good way
if you
to do it.
can, you know,
That's a peaceful life.
that's what I know, that's what I desire, and I think other people can have more of that. It's because problem gonna come around for sure. You just have to find a way to kind of it's really it's up to how you see it, right? It's like what Marcus Aurelius wrote in his meditation book. It's just the idea that it's not it is how you're reacting to, right? It's not what you're reacting to. Things are gonna happen no matter what. It's how you're reacting to it, right? So you almost want to develop this kind of almost nonchalant attitude. It's like, yeah, okay, that happened. All right, I'll see what I had to do to not make it continue, right? Solve the problem, and then okay, no problem, back to no problem. So I mean, that's my guiding principle. I mean, just go with that. It simply is just easier for me to handle that way. If I see everything like that, then okay, then you know exactly what you need to do. Instead of like, oh, I'm so angry this happened, or I'm so pissed off about this. Like, well, so what? You get pissed off,
Yeah,
and then what? Right?
yeah.
Are you gonna
Move
solve the
on
problem? You're not gonna
to
solve
the
the problem.
solution. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
And I think that goes a lot. It goes with everything. Goes with work, goes your own personal life, goes even with your spiritual life. Sometimes if it costs you suffering, nah, whatever. I don't care about the dogma. I don't care about the,
Yeah. You do have to trust your gut and your instincts and your experience. That's the one thing I learned from this because there was definitely a lot before where I would be seeking some kind of external guidance. And so, if anything, it definitely worked towards like, you know what? No, I know what I
you
need.
know what? Yeah. See, you both know and you know that you need to know certain things, right? So you are the only one who can fix your own problems because this is what I learned. Nobody can solve problems for you. And conversely, this might sound very cold, but it's true. Nobody cares about you. Or you
Yeah,
can think about it
not to
like
that extent.
not like nobody care about you more than you care about yourself, right? That's a nicer way to put it. But it's true because everybody is just concerned about themselves. That's the thing. That's the kind of basic mode that everybody is running on, right? For you to care about other people, it takes energy. It's a it's because you got to place yourself in their shoes. That's another change of mentality that takes a lot of energy to do. So most people don't do it, right? So and also like, we talked about this before. Nobody care about your embarrassing thing that you did sometime ago. They forgot about it. They're worrying about
Right.
their own embarrassing things. So you see,
Yeah, it's
people are
true. Don't
people
really remember this stuff about other people.
people are carrying the wrong things, right? They're like, this is what I find for myself as well, right? I learned that, okay, yeah, I used to care about things that basically doesn't matter. Like I'm creating friction for myself, right? I'm worrying myself about things I did, embarrassing or otherwise, but nobody else was thinking about that. So you're just creating
Right.
problem for yourself, right? Mentally.
Yeah, based on nothing.
Yeah. So I think that it's all about mental hygiene for yourself. Otherwise, things gonna get to you. You're gonna get angry about things and like don't externalize it, right? Or internalize it. It's all about knowing more about yourself, right? You should be able to find a solution that fits your problem. You can't just go around and be like, why aren't things working out the way they should be? right? But why don't you find the solution then, right? Because this is what I find running business and life in general. I had experiences where, yeah, you try to work with other people and they screwed you over, or it just end up not working out, right? As a kind of like a business to get doing a business together or whatever. You end up finding out that yeah, the alignment is not there. At the base level, is like they don't really care about you other than the bottom line of what you provide, right?
Right.
So that's the thing, right? Life experiences teaches you this, where yeah, only you hold your own fate. You can change the things that is important to you, and nothing else can fix it other than yourself, right? Meaning that not to say that you don't ask for help from other people, but you should try to fix it yourself. Until you realize you don't have the know-how, then you like other
Yeah.
people, fix it for you. So, but especially mentally, I think a lot of the things, a lot of the problems is really comes from yourself. It's not that the outside world is being unjust or whatever. Is that you have a false sense of world building, I guess. Like you're not gauging the reality, right? You're building like narratives in your head, thinking this is how it went or this is how things are. But in reality is actually false. That's not actually the case. So you kind of running versions in your head, right? You're like being deluded, right? I think that's the biggest hurdle. So for anything, the exercise to do is just be more self-aware and self-assess. Be like, okay, yeah, this is the
Yeah.
situation. What do I do with it? Okay, I'll try to find out. And you fix it.
Yeah. And on this practical note, we should wrap it up before we establish a new world record.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
But yeah, this is another classic episode of Deep Fried Spork
Is
because
this how deep you want it?
it's even deeper than I
Oh my
thought we would be
God.
going. So yeah,
Yeah.
but this is a good theme kind of. I think this is our stride because things percolate to the top, and this is the actual reality we're dealing with, and we are covering all kinds of topics again, all
Because
kinds of strides, and
we're trying to ascertain, are we crazy? Are we seeing this correctly, right? It's like,
yeah,
because without this, I'm like, you don't know, right? In your head, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But then
yeah,
does it really make sense?
this is what the actual thought process looks like in real time.
Right. And
Like,
this is
wait, what?
why you have
What?
conversations, right? This is why you have conversations. You got to figure it out. Okay, is this working or not? Is this, are you seeing
Yeah,
this?
you do have to bounce these ideas around and get some feedback and make sure you're not crazy. Yeah.
This is how we keep saying, yeah.
Yes. So stick around for the next deep
Oh
dive.
my
We are
God. It's getting
surely,
deeper, bro.
yeah, we're surely to raise the standard again and again and again. So until then, stay crispy.
Yes.